Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon everyone who is watching or listening. My name is Kenny Bomer. I am the author of the book Consider Islam, Disproving the Patriots of Propaganda. The forthcoming book, Everything is a Test, Truth is Made Clear from Falsehood. And I do bear witness there's no God other than Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his final servant and the seal of all prophets. So today is Reasons to Revert. We have a special guest on. I'm going to bring him on here in a moment, him and Brother Ziad. So we have Brother Frank Anderson is going to come on and tell us his revert story. It's kind of a different type of revert story, but it's a revert story nonetheless. So he'll be on here in a moment to discuss his story and his journey to Islam and his journey within Islam. And so with that being said, we're going to bring him on in a moment, but I want to mention tomorrow at this same time, as a matter of fact, I will be engaging in a live moderated debate with a gentleman by the name of Isa ibn Yahya, who has made the claim that his father is his deceased father, wa inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi rajiun, is the final prophet and the Messiah and the reincarnate of the prophet Yahya, better known as John the Baptist. I say better known as, not necessarily. John the Baptist is recognized in the Quran and the Bible. He says that his father is the combination of all three. So he's the final prophet, the Messiah, and the reincarnate of John the Baptist, all rolled into one, if you can believe that. He does call himself a Muslim, and we will be engaging in a discussion tomorrow, debate about that. So I encourage you to tune in to that debate, inshallah. Also, Brother Shabir Ali, he should be coming on next week, sometime next week. We still have to coordinate the actual day, but inshallah, the last email interaction I had with him stated that he will be on next week, and so we got to coordinate that day. But so yes, so if you're watching right now, please share the link. I do see that Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum salam, Brother Tariq and Imma5 Dunya. Assalamu alaikum, back and forth. Wa alaikum salam, depending on which one you present it. Brother Safar Amari, also the Sassy Heathen, Mindy Domir. She says that someone's already hit dislike on one of the streams without the show, before the show ever started. So it's probably, most likely, obviously, an Islamophobe out there somewhere. So hello, Islamophobes. Once again, the debate tomorrow, it's going to be at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. on the East Coast, and I believe that is midnight in the UK. And I'm going to bring on Brother Ziad right now. Brother Ziad, he's in Greece. Let me make sure his mic is off of mute. Brother Ziad, assalamu alaikum, brother. Let me add you to the stream.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillah. So, brother, how are you today?
Alhamdulillah.
Good. So what time is it in Greece right now?
Right now, it is 3:08 in the morning.
3:08 in the morning. Alhamdulillah. So brother Ziad will be actually moderating the debate tomorrow. Inshallah, he'll be moderating the debate. And so it should be very interesting. So, matter of fact, I encourage you, if you're a Muslim, please share the link for the debate. Matter of fact, you can find it on my Facebook page. You can find it on YouTube. Share the links for the debate. And the reason being is because what this individual is talking about, this is Isa ibn Yahya, my opponent, the stuff that he's saying, he claims to be a Muslim, but he's so far out of the fold of Islam. And I'm going to prove that tomorrow, inshallah. I'm going to prove that. What's crucial, it's important that we let it be known that this particular individual is out there spreading falsehood, and I will demonstrate that in the debate. But we need to let as many people know as possible, because my fear is that I don't want anyone being led astray. I actually invited him on the show before. I didn't realize. Matter of fact, he joined the platform when we were still using the Zoom platform. And he'd comment here and there, and he's reading from somewhere. I don't know what he's reading from, but it's stuff that I would hear that was familiar with the obviously from the Quran, some stuff from the Bible. I won't get into all of it. We'll talk about all these issues tomorrow during the debate. But if you're watching, you're a Muslim, even if you're non-Muslim, please share the link for the debate tomorrow. Please tune in tomorrow, because it's crucial and vital that we correct these falsehoods that are leveled against Islam, even if it's other Muslims or so-called Muslims that are creating these falsehoods. And so, inshallah, so please tune into that. Please tune into that. So, with no further ado, we have Brother Frank Anderson on, and he's gonna tell us his revert story. So, I do want to say before we get into that, once again, Brother MI5 Dunya, assalamu alaikum to you, and thank you for moderating the chat. Also, I haven't seen Brother Mukit Khan comment yet, but if he's out there listening, assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum to everyone. Peace be upon everyone. So, with that being said, Brother Frank Anderson, assalamu alaikum, brother. How are you?
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, good to be here, brother.
Alhamdulillah. I'm glad to have you on. Glad to have you on.
How are you doing, brothers? Brothers, yeah.
Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen.
Alhamdulillah. All is well. All is well. So let's start at the beginning, brother Frank, and start from the earliest period of your life that you can remember, and tell us from a religious standpoint, what, kind of where you grew up, and just tell us your background as far as the early stages of your development as a child and your religious affiliations. And before we get started, assalamu alaikum, Brother Marshall Gregory. He just joined the platform as well. And so we have Brother Marshall Gregory. I'm trying to unmute you, brother. You probably have to unmute yourself, Marshall. But Marshall Gregory is one of the promoters and a regular panelist for Consider This TV. So assalamu alaikum, brother. How are you today?
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm doing good. I'm gonna have to step away for Salat Maghrib, inshallah, but then after I'll return, inshallah.
Okay, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Okay, so Brother Frank Anderson, let's start at the beginning and tell us a little bit about your early interactions with religion, what the religion was, or take it from there, inshallah.
Of course. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulullah wa sahbihi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala amma ba'd. Yes, so I mean, as far as I can go back a long time ago, I mean, religion was more, how should I describe it as? Okay, it was something that I never actually considered to be very, very important in my life. Basically, okay, so I grew up in California. I was in a Muslim family. However, I mean, my parents were introduced to Islam a while ago. But the thing is, what I have actually learned all the way up till now is just because you're born into a Muslim family doesn't actually, guarantee that you are a Muslim right away. The thing is, what I really love about the word revert is, the definition of this word is, okay, you return something back to, right? You come back to the original state, or you come back to the truth. But either you're in a Muslim family or even if you're in a non-Muslim family, the thing is that at some point, things will come to you in life here and there, and then all of a sudden you might get off from your course. But inshallah, you will come back, whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills. That's what happened to me. So I grew up in California, and the neighborhood that I was within, okay, I grew up with a lot of Christians and Jews. So definitely the neighborhood I grew up in, definitely a lot of Jews. I mean, they're still there. I mean, alhamdulillah. The thing is, they have a lot of synagogues over there, and even the marketplaces over there. I mean, back then, my parents would actually, my mom would actually take me there to shop for groceries. It was interesting. I mean, I would see actually the Kumash, several of the prayer books over there. The thing is, my parents taught me very basics about Islam, but the thing is, I never actually understood what it was, honestly. I mean, I was reciting things, but the thing is, I didn't even know what I was reciting. I mean, all I cared about, honestly, was whatever was on the media at that time. Whatever was on the media would become apparent to me. Okay, this is pretty clear. And as a result, I started hiding myself, who I was, my entire family became very, very worried. Even my father, I remember when he used to take me to car wash, the owner of this car wash, after the 9/11 incident. I mean, we grew up in certain times. We all went through, this kind of issue, back when 9/11, the war on terror. I mean, a lot of these claims actually started to make us, feel isolated from the society,
Well, let me ask you a question along those lines. So was it, you mentioned that you was following what was happening in the media for the most part. So was it the 9/11 issue that made you kind of step into the shadows a little bit and try to retract from being recognized as a Muslim? And the second question is, were your parents, were they active, or were they just were they establishing the prayer on a regular basis? So was you exposed to that, or were they not? And no offense to them. I mean, people are people, and people go through various stages of life. So, but I'm just curious about those two issues there.
Of course, yeah. So my parents were okay. They knew Islam, they knew the basics, but the thing is, they weren't heavily, very, very practicing. So the thing is, I would sometimes witness them. Sometimes I would see them praying once in a while, but the thing is, not every, like, I wouldn't say 5 times a day. I mean, sometimes I would see them missing prayer. Sometimes not even, sometimes not even attending to prayers when it is time for prayer. And when Ramadan used to come, the thing is, all I thought about Ramadan was, okay, you just stay away from food and water for the entire day. You're just basically starving yourself and thirsting yourself. Okay, I mean, that didn't make sense. I mean, that's the thing, the only time I've seen them, let's say, the only time I was actually recognizing Islam when I was back in my teen years, and also when I was back in my high school days and also middle school. So whenever Ramadan would used to come, that's the only time I would actually see my parents and also other people around me, kind of like leaning towards learning the basics of Islam again and slowly practicing prayers, practicing their recitation of the Quran, and also donating to charity. The thing is, Ramadan was actually, like the big picture for me when I was back during those days, whenever I wasn't actually very religious. Ramadan actually made everything like kind of, well, how should I say it? It made everything stand out, basically. But the thing is, again, I didn't understand. I mean, I doubt that anybody would understand that.
So it's interesting that you mentioned that, and I think this is something very, very important. And you say you think that the Ramadan made everything stand out. Now I take that as you're saying that you realized in Ramadan that in Ramadan, probably I would assume that you're saying that your parents actually changed how they functioned on a day in day out basis during the month of Ramadan. Is that
yes.
Okay,
yes,
that's important. Yeah. Because this is one of the reasons why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his wisdom has established this month for the fast, because it's a time to hit a reset button, right? It's time to refocus and to even if you failed, you have a chance to restart. So I wanted to mention that, and I want to encourage the Muslims listening to not wait until Ramadan. Matter of fact, I've tried to make that post when I realize Ramadan's getting close, and and throughout the year I try to make a post here and there saying, "Don't wait until Ramadan. Don't wait until Ramadan because we might not make another Ramadan."
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
yeah, I remember even when I was a kid, whenever the month of Ramadan used to come, even some of the people at my school, they would be like, "Why are you fasting 30 days? I mean, isn't that hard? Why are you damaging yourself? You're just doing this all for God. You just start, dying yourself of hunger. You just, prevent, you're just gonna, be hungry and thirsty all day. I mean, what is wrong with you?" I mean, these kind of questions, I mean, for me, on the other hand, the thing is, honestly, I would take their side. I'm like, yeah, I don't know why I'm doing it. Honestly, for me, it is so difficult. But the thing is, alhamdulillah, if you think about it, I kind of like how these people actually ask these kind of questions. It's because the thing is, Ramadan is standing out to them. Now they're like wondering, wait, what kind of a month is this? I mean, really, how could these people actually fast 30 days, from sunrise to sunset? I mean, this is interesting. I got to look this up.
Well, not only that, but the fact that by you answering those questions, it makes you more conscious within yourself as you're doing the dawah and you're telling people about it. It's also a reminder to yourself, right?
Exactly.
So it's like it puts you in a situation where you don't want to be a hypocrite. So therefore, you're more devoted to what it is that you're explaining, and I'm bringing that up because that's why dawah is so important. That's why propagating and sharing Islam with other people is important, even if you're not doing everything perfect yourself. Because what happens is, matter of fact, when I give a dawah class, I tell people, the dawah starts with yourself, because you don't want to be propagating something and sharing something that you yourself are not doing. So it encourages you when you get involved in dawah. It encourages you to actually live by what you're talking about. As a matter of fact, there's a verse in the Quran, I can't remember which one right now, but it's in summary. So it's in summary. It says that how dare you share something that you yourselves are not doing, and so that's one of the benefits of Ramadan, and one of the benefits of doing the dawah, inshallah. So yeah, I want to talk about the 9/11 thing just briefly once again in regards to your parents in particular, and of course this is not, we're not saying anything bad against your parents. Obviously, people are people, and they go through many different circumstances in life. So this is, but because people are people, we all go through similar issues. What I'm curious about is, were they even less active, or more or less active after 9/11 took place, or how did that work? And the reason I ask that, because I know a lot of the Muslims, I mentioned this in the book, how people that are having more of a traditional stereotypical Muslim look, they're more prone to step into the shadows because of all the Islamophobia in the world. And so I'm curious if 9/11 caused them to do that, or maybe if it was vice versa, maybe they got more active in some way. But what happened with that?
Sure. So I wouldn't say they. So I remember. Okay, they weren't very active, but the thing is, if they were practicing their faith, they would do it secretly. I mean, in the shadows. So definitely, they would, hide their. Like my parents and I, definitely they were telling me all the time. I remember, don't tell anybody you're a Muslim. Don't tell anybody you are. Who you are. Basically, just don't even mention your. Don't even mention your religion to anyone, because the thing is, of whatever is going on right now, we cannot actually trust anybody right now. And I remember myself too. I mean, like, the thing is, before this event, right, before 9/11 took place, like, people knew who I was. Actually, there were, like, some people at school, I remember. So I grew up, like, I was surrounded with Christians, a lot of Christian kids, even Jewish kids, and I also had people from other different backgrounds as well. So some people, I remember one of my brother's friends. Okay, he's a Hindu, but the thing is, the thing I'm trying to say is, people already knew who I was. I mean, like, what religion I follow, and after this event, I myself was bullied on several accounts. I mean, it wasn't actually nice. I mean, it was very, very tough. I remember back, when I was in my apartment, I used to be dragged against the wall, and punched in the face. I mean, all those, like, once I remember I was going to my cousin's apartment, and then I was dragged against the wall, and then I was beaten. Like, it was not. And then I come home in front of my parents, and then that kind of hurt. I mean, that kind of shocked them. I mean, then, like, seriously, I mean, the times were actually very tough.
What were the people that were attacking you? What kind of things were they saying?
Oh,
or if you remember.
I don't actually remember quite. But it was a long time.
Specifically because you were Muslim and they knew you were Muslim?
Yeah, they knew. I mean, they were my neighbors, actually, to be honest. But, they did know who I. They did know who, like, what I was, and what religion I practiced. But yeah, like, after the 9/11, it changed a lot of it actually had a lot of changes in other people's perceptions of, who Muslims are, how they should be treated, with how they should be, characterized and put into their places. I mean, I remember my father used to take me to this car wash, and the owner of that car wash would ask for everybody's last name. And since when my father gave them, his Muslim name, he gave a Muslim name, and then, he would wash our cars last. That was the time when we actually decided, okay, what, we need to move. Like, really, the thing is, the place we were around, it was getting heavily polluted with a lot of discrimination. I mean, definitely, I remember, I mean, I didn't want to move, actually. I mean, I grew up here. This is where I have a lot of people whom I'm familiar with, but the thing is, it was getting too chaotic, too polluted. I mean, with a lot of hatred, a lot of discrimination, and it became very tough for me. My parents weren't always, after that, after the 9/11, after, whatever was on the media, they wouldn't actually practice, very heavily. The thing is, I mean, they either practice, I would say not that heavily, but, like somewhere in the middle, But definitely, never did I see any people giving da'wah after that. And those people who actually had beards, they would shave off their beards. A lot of brothers did that. A lot of brothers actually shaved off their beards, hid their identities, and try to even make up some stories too. Actually, try to even make up some stories. No, like the thing is, I understand. When I was a kid, I understood. I mean, like why they were doing all what that they were doing, and even a lot of brothers, they were even deported back to where they came from, and some of them were accused wrongly and put in prisons. And there are some people who are in prisons today. May Allah, hasten their release for all this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like a lot of the people I know, including my parents, including myself. I mean, for me, I never cared, honestly. I believe whatever the media said, and all I would say is, I'm like, I would go to my parents. I'm like, Mom, why, since you're a Muslim, why are you actually, following a religion that's, actually promoting all this violence and stuff? I mean, all this media was actually coming, it was actually brainwashing me.
It's actually brainwashing you as a Muslim. You was actually thinking that what they were saying in the media was true, right?
Exactly. I would always, assume that, like that's when I was actually, I would say pretty much of a,
and this is part of. I addressed this very issue in the book, right? In my book, Consider Islam, and because this is a tactic of propaganda where they make the people that are the victims responsible for their own victimization. Matter of fact, Malcolm X is a quote in the book from Malcolm X. He says, "If you're not careful, the newspapers will have you hating the people that are being oppressed and loving the people that are doing the oppressing." And so it's part of a tactic of propaganda to make the victim responsible for their own victimization. And we've seen this happen in World War II with the Jews. We've seen this happen with blacks. We've seen it happen with the Muslims. It's something that's systemic, and it's something that it's been repeated over and over and over again. So I'm not surprised. And if you're stereotypical, you have the stereotypical look of a Muslim. I could see where the pressure, the day in, day out, when you're just trying to live your life and be happy, you have the pressure of, now I'm a target. I'm a target. I was already a target. Now I'm a target. Even it's compounded because of something that I had nothing to do with. Right? You had nothing. The Muslims had nothing to do with it, but now they're being targeted as though they're somehow, a part of it in some way, or maybe if they're not directly a part of it, eventually they will be, or they got something else going on in the shadows that they're responsible for. So
a lot of brothers actually went into the shadows, trying to do whatever they can to keep their identity, to keep their faith, to keep on, worshiping Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. It was very, very difficult with them. And I remember back when I used to attend school, so in my high school, one of my teachers, he was actually pretty much against Muslims. I mean, I remember I was in that class myself, and I always felt uncomfortable whenever he would bring up holy war. The thing is, he would always talk about that. I mean, I don't know, the thing is, on media, that's what they actually tend to always pinpoint on. And I don't actually understand why they want to do that, because the thing is, I'm like, back then when I used to believe whatever the media says, whatever that guy is, in front of the media wearing a suit and a tie, looking all good and, looking all educated because of his fancy words. And, but the thing is, the only thing he was always talking about regarding Muslims on TV, like, oh, they would have this holy war, jihad, they would just kill, behead,
Yeah, which is entirely absolutely incorrect. Incorrect.
Exactly.
Spread by the sword. So I'm not trying to use a blanket generalization against Christianity, but the fact of the matter is, I mean, the historical facts prove and demonstrate that it was actually Christianity that was propagated by the sword.
That is right.
Islam there was defensive battles. There was many battles, but they were self-defense. Okay, but Christianity itself was actually truly propagated by by the sword. So the one, once again, it falls in line with, once again, the people who are the victims are made to look as though they're responsible for their own victimization. They're labeled as the bad guy by the people that are actually doing the crime. So in this situation, Christianity is responsible for spreading Christianity by the sword. We see it throughout the centuries. It's happened, and I mean, for centuries this has happened. But it's Islam that's targeted by the very ones that are actually guilty of the crime. So it's just insane. Well, you mentioned that you had a teacher that was obviously an anti-Muslim type individual, and it brings to mind someone by the name of Eric Smith. I think you're familiar with Eric Smith with Patriots Radio, who happens to be a history teacher in Iowa. And I could just imagine the things that he might say causing other Muslims. I'm sure he must have some Muslims in his class. He's got to. And they probably experiencing that same issue. And that's the reason for this segment, the reasons it's a Revert segment. Because even though your story is a little bit different, but the reality is you were born into a Muslim family, but because of the pressures of society, you and just your family dynamics and all those things, you weren't really committed like you should have been, but you reverted back to what is right. You reverted back to the truth and trying to follow Insirat al-Mustaqim, the straight path of Allah. And so that's why these types of stories are so important, because there's other people out there that are thinking and going through the same emotions, that are facing very similar circumstances. And this Reasons to Revert segment is meant to reach the people that are non-Muslims right now, or even Muslims for that matter, and encourage them to say, you know what, let me look at this Islam thing a little bit deeper. And let me go to the Muslims and see what they have to say about it. And why are all these people reverting to Islam? What's their story? How did this Christian guy or this Jewish guy or this atheist guy or people from Texas or California, wherever they're from, what made them accept Islam? So brother, may Allah bless you for coming on to tell the story. So
I would also actually want to point out this, people actually after 9/11 and even after after all the issues regarding the war on terror, the thing is, you had Islam not even going down. I mean, people kept on entering the fold of Islam even afterwards. And alhamdulillah, another thing is, that was very beneficial was a lot of dawah organizations actually appeared after the incidents of like 9/11 and the war on terror. And even there's a Jewish professor I remember reading. I have his article in front of me right now. He posted this in the Jewish Chronicle. His name is David Wasserstein. So he's a professor in Jewish field studies. He's in he teaches in Vanderbilt University. So this is what he has to say about Islam. What he said about Islam, is had Islam not come along, the line of Jews, so the Jews in the West, would have declined to disappearance, and Jewry in the East would have become just another Oriental cult. So as you were mentioning, brother, about Christianity, so this is what he was talking about. So he was talking about by the 4th century, Christianity had become the dominant religion in the Roman Empire. So one of the aspects of this success was the opposition to the rival faiths, including Judaism, along with other massive conversion of members from other different faiths. So there were like a lot of military and political struggles, even with Persia as well. I mean, as a tiny element in the Christian world, the Jews were not affected much by this broad political issue, but yet it affected them critically because the Persian Empire at that time included the Babylon, which is now present-day Iraq, right? And Babylon had the greatest concentration of Jews. So what David Wasserstein is actually mentioning in his article was, the thing is, Christians were like massacring. They were massacring Jews left and right. And if Islam had not come had Islam not even come, Jews, the line of Jews would be wiped out. It would have been wiped out. And even when Muslims granted these Jews protection, and to the point where Muslims were no longer able to grant protection, the Jews even wanted to come with the Muslims. They were like, take us with you. The thing is, whatever you hear, I actually highly, highly, highly recommend these people who are actually following the media. The thing is, I've even taken several media classes myself when I was on campus, when I was at UCSD. So I used to go to University of California, San Diego. I even took media classes. And one of the questions I would always ask is, would we ever know the truth? I mean, what is the truth? The thing is, we don't even know what's going on. Like whatever is on the media, the thing is our professor would actually bring up a lot of propaganda biases. I mean, what is the truth? The thing is, we couldn't believe whatever is coming in front of our eyes. Just like they say, just don't ever judge a book by its cover. Never do that. So
that's right. And that's why, speaking of book cover, alhamdulillah, the whole issue that we're talking about is, I cover that in 15 chapters of this book about the use of propaganda and the fact that we're presented with things to this whole fake news. We're living in the fake news era, right? And matter of fact, I have a chapter of the book titled "Media Assassins," and the first thing that I mentioned is fake news, because this is a tactic. This is not nothing new. This was actually utilized by Hitler during World War II era. Matter of fact, he referred to it as in German, it's called Lügenpresse, which means fake news. And so anytime Hitler said something that was controversial, he would claim that it was fake news, that the media is just blowing it out of proportion. And so what was happening is, even back then, media sources were at odds with one another about what the truth was. And now the people are confused. Now we live in the modern era where this fake news thing has been brought up again. Mm-hmm. It's not. This is studied by the people in power. They study this issue and they reutilize it and they perfect it. Now, with the mass media the way it is, with social media and all these things, people are exposed to things within seconds. This term fake news has been brought back up again, and people are left to say, okay, do I follow what CNN is saying, or do I follow Fox News? Can I trust CNN? Can I follow? Matter of fact, I probably can't trust any of them when it boils down to it. Because right. they're trying to mold you and shape you from a particular for a particular narrative or a particular ideology or belief, depending on what side of the aisle that they're on, right? So
right. Yeah, and they're like the thing about media is they always you couldn't actually trust someone, wearing a suit and a tie, and using all these words, and then, making you watch all these videos. And the thing is, there were even incidents where, the video wasn't actually, it wasn't actually an accurate video. The thing is, whatever they're showing you, whatever footage they're showing you, it might have been for like some other kind of reason or some other story. But the thing is, it's not even true. And the media they treat you like puppets. Basically, they're the ones who are holding the strings. You're just a dancing puppet,
You say puppet? Alhamdulillah. And Danny Davis says that I use the opportunity every show to promote my book. Danny Davis, why would I not? Why would I not? I'm the author of a book that's talking about something that's very important to me, which is why I wrote the book, addressing the very topic that we're talking about right now, which is what Islam and how propaganda is used against Islam. I've written 15 chapters on the issue. I'm an author, and obviously I'm going to promote my book. This is my area of expertise. Obviously I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to talk about the book whenever that opportunity comes up. Alhamdulillah. So with that being said, I mean, this is very serious, and this is something that average Joe, common folk, everyday folk. I mean, I consider I'm an average Joe as well, but for the reason I bring that up is because what it boils down to is people are being molded and shaped to believe certain things based on what they're seeing in the media, the television, the movies, on social media, and they don't realize it because, the fact of the matter is they're so busy trying to pay the light bill and trying to pay the rent and doing this and dealing with the kids and, dealing with life that they don't realize that they're falling headfirst into a trap and being shaped and molded to believe certain things and presented with a certain worldview, depending on what group you follow, what group you associate with. And it's nothing new. I mean, this is nothing new. It's like I mentioned, Hitler used the same phrase, Lügenpresse, which means literally fake news in German. And this is something that he utilized during that time. And they're the ones that on a mass scale began actually using propaganda on a mass scale to attack the Jews, against the Jews. And it's something that not everyone knows about that. I spent a lot of time doing research for this book and studying the use of propaganda throughout history and how it's been used to attack certain groups of people. And there's always a target, so it's something that's very, very important. So I try to encourage people in the course of the book to step out of that, step away from the social media and realize that, wait a minute. If I hear something, then I can't just take it at face value and think that it's right. Just like you mentioned about trusting someone because he's got a nice suit and tie on, he's speaking all prim and proper, and he's a respected news authority or whatever. Well, the fact of the matter is, these people are human beings, and they, the news media, like you asked, you saying while you were a student, you ask, are we ever going to hear the truth? Because they're all about the headlines. They're all about the shock effect, right?
Exactly. And the thing is, I remember once when I was this was like 2 years ago. So I was going to the masjid. This was during the month of Ramadan, I believe. So I had a book in my hand. So this was the 99 Names of Allah. And I called an Uber. I used to take the Uber all the time to the masjid. And this guy who was my Uber driver, he was a Jew. And he was asking me, he didn't ask me a question. What is that book? Let me see. And I'm like, here, this is the book. I mean, this. And he was like, only 99 names of Allah? Allah only has 99 names? And I'm like, no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, infinite. He's all great. He's all knowing, and he has far more names, and he's beyond imperfection. You cannot actually, if you were to turn all the trees into pens and you were to turn all the seas into ink, you will never be exhausted. I mean, it's not enough to actually, even that is not enough to actually describe the perfection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we went into talking, and then he went into straight talking about media, and then he himself said, I was a journalist. I was a journalist back in Israel. I was also in Saudi Arabia for some time. And the thing is, he was like, let me tell you one thing that, what you should never do. You should never, ever, ever, focus so much on the media, because the thing is that whatever they're saying to you is not even true. What they're doing is, saying all these things to get money out of you. The thing is, he himself, he was like, I'm a Jew. He was like, I was a journalist myself. And and another thing about media is, when I used to question that, will we ever know the truth? Because the thing is, even with the George Floyd incident, coupled, this recently, right? So there were like some people who were like one of my neighbors. Okay, I was talking to him about this, and he was asking me, did you verify that information? Because I heard something else, and I'm like, really? I mean, this is what I heard. This is what I heard from this. And he was like, this is what he heard.
Getting feedback. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So my point was, the thing is, we were actually looking at two different things. I mean, George Floyd did this, and some other news station would say something else. Now the thing is, when you take someone's word into account, like, why should you believe him or her? What is the credibility? If you read throughout the entire biography of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he used to, verify whatever information he used to get. He used to verify, whether this is true, whether this is false. He would never actually assume right away. But the thing is, media tends to change our perception, right away.
Yeah, and that's the point that I was wanting to make a while ago, and I failed to do so. Is that whenever we hear something, we cannot just take that as though that's the truth. We got to go to different sources, right, and go to respected sources. And especially, and I bring this up in the book regarding, obviously I'm talking about Islam. So I'm telling people, look, you can't use the example of someone saying that a storm is coming. Well, a storm very well may be coming, but is it coming to your area? So someone heard that a storm is coming, but is it coming to where you're located? Are you going to put on rain boots and a slicker suit and wear it all day because you heard someone say that the storm is coming, when in reality it's not coming anywhere near you, where you're at? So the point being is that we need to go to various sources and check the information. Check and see if I heard such and so so tell me a certain thing, I need to go do a fact check. Just like, matter of fact, I think Mindy Delmir just said that in the chat as well. So you got to fact check and say, all right, well, I'm going to fact check, but I'm going to go to respected sources. If the problem is, collectively, the more we got to get a consensus. So go to as many sources as you can about a particular issue and see what the overall consensus is and go with that. I mean, that's all we can do sometimes on certain things. So, yeah, alhamdulillah. So, brothers, brother Marshall Gregory, I see we brother Ibn Anwar had just joined the show as well. We're interviewing brother Frank Anderson about his Revert story. So I want to just make sure if you brothers have a question for brother Frank, feel free to ask him as we go, if you'd like. So, brother Marshall, you have a question for him?
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the barakatuh. Yeah, Frank. What was your first thing? What was the first biggest misconception you had about Islam that you found out was untrue when you seek the truth of Islam?
Right. So my first biggest misconception was because Islam was all about holy war. Basically, that's what the only perception I had. Based on all the media I used to listen to. The thing is, even at school, my teachers used to talk about everybody. Like everyone used to talk about the same thing over and over again. The thing is, I never knew what to answer, to be honest. The thing is, this is what I would always hear. Even my history teacher would used to make the same remark. This is what happened. This is what the Islam Empire did. He even used to show us movies. I think there's one movie I forgot what it was called, of Muslims attacking Jerusalem. The thing is, that's the only scenes he would actually show, just war. The thing is, that's the biggest first misconception I always had was, Islam is all about, violence, basically. It's all about, killing. The thing is, it hurt me a bit. I mean, it hurt me too. Like, there was something somewhere inside of me saying, no, this is not true. This is not true. This is not true. I mean, I had that inner feeling, but the thing is, what I was looking out on the outside, it seemed more, apparent to me than what I was actually focusing on myself at the inside. Because the thing is, I myself knew. I mean, the thing is, I was born into a Muslim family, but the only thing is, I never practiced it very well. I never even understood what I was doing. Actually, sometimes, I would have doubts here and there, like talking about holy war. I mean, talking about jihad and all that. I never knew what to answer. I didn't even know how to answer anything regarding that topic at all. I was, I would either stay ashamed or, I would just go back and tell them, wait. Well, I'll just, lurk back into the shadows. I'm just trying to hide my identity, hide who I am. But then slowly what I came to when I was 21, when I started doing my research more and more, the thing is, alhamdulillah, there were like a lot of classes that I actually took, which had a lot of benefit. So one of them was, taking media classes. Our course was called Media Seductions. That's what it was called.
Ah, what a great descriptive word for the media. Absolutely.
Yeah, my professor and I used to sit with her all the time. We used to talk about. There was a lot of papers I had to write, and we used to sit. I used to go to her office hours all the time, and we used to talk about, okay, first of all, there's this one project I had. There's this one paper I had to write. This was regarding psychology on serial killers, basically. And the way killers, basically. And the way sorry, the
no,
sorry,
even I want well, maybe it wasn't Brother Ibn Anwar. I think it was. It's all right, brother.
Yeah, sorry. I was actually thinking. What's going on? Okay, so I'll getting back to my story. So there's one paper I had to write with my professor. This was regarding the serial killer incidents, and the thing is, it was all about psychology. Like what did these people actually go through, and how they actually were impacted, and what were they seduced by, and the thing is, people actually make comic books out of them, and movies, and other headlines. Depicting all these kind of people, and the way how they were support. You can support the government on such and such cases because if you don't, then you're gonna have all these disgusting things happening to the society, like all this killing, raping, murdering. Like the Black Dahlia case that was not even solved. Yeah, that one is a long-term case. But other than that, when I took this media seduction course, it kind of opened my mind so much. And my professor would even tell, her grandmother and her grandfather, when they were at the honeymoon, that was the time when they saw Hitler coming out of his car and then giving a speech. They went on their honeymoon in Germany somewhere. I mean, like I think it's in Berlin. But then when she went slowly into World War I, World War II, you know, putting up a lot of news headlines. I really love that class, actually. It was like one of my favorite classes. Well, alhamdulillah. And
it exposes you to a lot of the tactics that are used. Matter of fact, speaking of Hitler, in the 4th chapter of my book, which is the subheading is named after chapter 4 of the book, Disproving the Patriots of Propaganda. So chapter 4 is titled Patriots of Propaganda. And in that chapter, I have a quote from Adolf Hitler from the book Mein Kampf. And note what he says, because I wanted to mention this particular quote because you said that you would hear the same things over and over and over again, right? And so this is what Adolf Hitler says in his book Mein Kampf. And he says, and I quote, "The purpose of propaganda is not to provide an interesting distraction to blasé young gentlemen, but to convince the masses. But the masses are slow moving, and they always require a certain time before they are ready to be to even notice a thing, and only after the simplest ideas are repeated thousands of times will the masses finally remember them." End of quote. So if you notice these little catchphrases, right? Radical Islam, Sharia law, and jihad, and all these things that we hear, these little phrases that are repeated, literally, just like he says in that quote. These things that are repeated over and over and over and over again, and with the modern technology the way it is, we're seeing this happen on a mass scale today. So Islamophobia is real. It's not. You know, people seem to have a problem because I call certain people Islamophobes. Well, they are Islamophobes. I mean, a fear is a phobia is an irrational fear or aversion to something, and their phobia is Islam. They are Islamophobes. It's real.
Yeah, and I always like to pinpoint for those people who are Islamophobes. I usually kind of get them triggered by I'm like you pathetic Islamophobes. Basically, you're just being brainwashed by the media. I mean, the thing is, I was in your shoes once. The thing is, you're seduced by it. I remember as a student when I was writing about this was like a lot of World War II papers that I actually wrote. So back during World War II, when you had Dr. Seuss making all these comic strips and like a lot of pictures of what will happen if Hitler goes from Czechoslovakia and then starts conquering certain other countries in Europe and such, what would happen if America doesn't. Basically what Dr. Seuss was trying to do was try to have America be involved in World War II based on whatever means he can. He even made that was we actually had a library. We actually had a section in our library on campus with actual headlines. These were like actual newspapers. I mean, even our library was named after Dr. Seuss. Basically, a lot of his headlines, a lot of his comic strips, everything that you would see was basically it was like by means of media, trying to get people to trying to get America to be involved in the war, because if they're not involved in the war, such and such will happen. Hitler will soon, he would actually draw a lot of comics.
Brother, listen, it sounds like you read my book because that's I'm talking about all those issues that you're talking about in the book. So have you read the book?
I mean, actually, I still have a long way to go, but I've been pretty busy.
Okay. You had a copy of it, but I was going to send you a copy of it because what you're talking about is actually many of the issues that I'm talking about in the book. Because and obviously, listen, it makes me alhamdulillah. You're saying that the things that you were studying in the class are the things that I was doing the research myself and coming across these same things that you're mentioning.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's the truth. It's not, so I've had, matter of fact, an atheist, his name's Bernard Long on Facebook. He went on my Amazon and for the book, and he left a horrible review, a 1-star review. Everyone else is 5 stars, but he left a 1-star review, and obviously he's an atheist. I've had interactions with him, and after my debate with him, I had a debate with him on he wanted to debate the embryology in the Quran. I told him, well, there's no embryology in the Quran, but I'll debate you on the topic of human development in the Quran, because those verses talk about more than just the embryology issue. So anyways, without getting off track, he went on and he left a horrible review, right? And I forgot what the point that I was going to make, because I was thinking about the debate. But nevertheless, the things that you're mentioning are things that that's the point I was going to make. It's things that I did a lot of research on as I wrote the book, and you're talking about the very same things, the issues that I found in the use of propaganda, how it's been utilized throughout history, are the very things that they were talking about in your class. So it lets me know that I was right along the right lines, and I was doing the proper research. Alhamdulillah. So he tried to discredit my book, but alhamdulillah, truth stands out clear from falsehood. But alhamdulillah. So when you was in school, you mentioned before in our private discussions that the kind of the influence of the Christians and the Jews was kind of weighing on you a little bit, and you kind of was leaning different directions at some point. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So the most annoying. I mean, okay. First of all, I remember. Okay, I'm like this. Although I'm born into a Muslim family, I'm born to a Muslim family. The thing is, I never practiced that much, but nevertheless, I wouldn't actually want to lean back and forth on any other religions. But then, when it came to Christianity and Judaism, the thing is, I used to find a lot of common things that were very similar to what I've heard when I was a kid. So as a result, I kind of like, I'm kind of leaning back on Christianity a bit, and then I was leaning back to Judaism. The thing was, when I was a student on campus, there were like a lot of preachers all the time, like with their Bibles and with their loud with their loud megaphones and with large posters, standing near the library walk, standing everywhere, walking, and they even stopped me a couple times, like several times I was stopped, and like, have you heard of this and that? Have you heard of Jesus? Such and such, and they were even trying to make me say Lord Jesus. They were literally they were not letting me go, and I'm like, I have to go now. Like, I don't even have time to talk, because the thing is, I have places to be.
Brother, a few shows ago, I talked about, I went to a church with a friend of mine once, and there was a lady preacher there. Matter of fact, her husband was on a missionary work out of the country somewhere, and she was a lady from Africa, and she was trying her best to get me to speak in tongues. And to get her away from me, you know what I did? I recited Al-Fatiha. And she thought that I was speaking in tongues. And my objective was, she wouldn't stop. She just kept on and on and on and on. That was her thing, trying to get everyone in the church to speak in tongues. I was like, ma'am, I don't speak in tongues. But she was so persistent that to get her away from me, I said, Uriblai min shaitan ar-rajim, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. And she just knew that I was speaking in tongues. Alhamdulillah. So I was just trying to get it worked. Yeah. It worked.
I should have. I was, trying to, do whatever I can, just to get away. He was like, this guy. I remember this preacher like say, Lord Jesus, repeating several times over and over, and I'm like, I cannot. I just have to go. The thing is, in order to actually avoid him, I'm just saying, okay, you know what? I'm saying it in my mind when I was not saying it actually. I was actually saying, okay, inside or whatever, I'm saying it in the inside. I'm like, no, I was not. I just wanted to get away from him.
Yeah.
That's why I made up an answer. I just made up, I know it wasn't right to do, but the thing is, I just wanted to get away from this preacher. The thing is,
I understand.
These kind of people, they're gonna stop by. Like a couple years ago, when I was following my deen very seriously, and then there were like other two Christian preachers that came and stopped, and then they were like asking me a bunch of questions, and they were like, well, so what are you? And I'm like, I'm a Muslim. So, and they were like, oh, but are you happy with your religion? Like, I know it wasn't right to do, but the thing is, I wanted to get away. He was asking me, are you happy with your religion? And I'm like, yes, of course. I mean, you want me to give you what I learned? I mean, would you want to know more about Islam? That's the time when they started backing away. And then, like, when like when I was actually jumping back and forth, the thing is there were like a lot of similar things from Christianity, from Judaism that actually, that I learned when I was a kid. Like, for example, we believe in Jesus as well. I mean, so, but the thing is, what didn't make sense to me when I was dealing in Christianity, like when I started learning a bit here and there, what didn't make sense to me in Christianity was, okay, first of all, Jesus himself, peace be upon him, he lived when, like 2,000 years ago, like more, like thousands of years ago. But how could you actually worship a man? I mean, the thing is, how do you even know whatever image you're having, whatever image you have in your church? How do you know if you look like that? First of all,
Yeah,
that's like number one question. And my other thing is, so there was when I was back in middle school. I remember when I was back in middle school, I used to carry a book with me. I mean, this was about Halloween, and in that pamphlet, it's just a small booklet I used to carry around with me all the time, and that kind of made my parents feel uncomfortable because whatever I was carrying around, that was all Christian material. So it was talking about how Halloween is not good; it's a devil's night. Jesus was crucified, Jesus was burned, like Jesus was beaten, he was crucified, he was resurrected, and such and such. It had all these teachings in just one pamphlet. I mean, the thing is, I really loved looking at that. It was very nice. I mean, I was a kid back then. I used to carry that thing everywhere, whenever I went, and that is when that is when I was thinking about crucifixion and then resurrection, and I'm like, first of all, he died. How could he come back alive? So, like, if he's God, then God dies and God comes back alive. Then I don't even know what concept of God are you guys even following. So
brother, have you seen the video on the Consider This TV channel titled "The Trinity Explained in 3 Minutes"?
I have seen that.
Yeah. So yeah, so if you're watching right now, matter of fact, after the show, be sure to go to Kenny Bomer Live, Consider This TV, or the sister channel, Consider This TV, and look for the video, "The Trinity Explained in 3 Minutes," and watch that, inshallah. Also, watch Kung Fu Hands. The Trinity Explained in 3 Minutes and Kung Fu Hands. You gotta see these videos, inshallah. So let me interrupt you just for a second, brother Frank, because I do want to mention that once again tomorrow I will be debating Isa ibn Yahya on the topic of who is or who is not the final prophet. Who is the final prophet, Muhammad or John? And I know this might sound strange for Muslims, but this is a so-called Muslim, Isa ibn Yahya, who claims that his father, who is deceased, who passed away a couple of years ago, was not only the final prophet, but also the Messiah and the reincarnate of John the Baptist, the prophet Yahya, all rolled into one. So this will be a very interesting debate. I know it's a very strange topic for Muslims, but it's something that I'm trying to address because I think this guy is venom, he's poison, and trying to prevent people from being led astray through this. So it's tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. on the East Coast, and that will be midnight in the UK. So I encourage you to tune into that debate tomorrow, inshallah. So, yes. So, brother, I see you have
question.
Go ahead, brother. Yes,
yeah,
brother.
I
How are
have
you?
some questions. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I have some questions pertaining to his belief that his book that his father gave him, supposedly, is a revelation from God. I would very much like to query him further on that, inshallah, tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's going to be an audience question and answer, questions from the audience portion of the debate. So, yeah, tune in to that. This guy he's on another planet, but listen, it's going to be a very interesting debate. Yeah.
If you don't mind, I'll be right back. I'm listening all the time. I'll be right because it's time for Fajr prayer here in Athens, Greece.
Okay, brother.
I'll be back. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
But yeah, it's going to be a very interesting debate tomorrow. Brother Ziad is actually going to be moderating. Yes, so inshallah. So yeah, brother, please join on the show. Brother Ibn Anwar, I don't know if you've been listening to Brother Frank's Revert story. But if you maybe have a question for him. Do you have any questions for him?
Not at the moment.
I have some for him. So, Brother Frank, back to the Christian, the Jew issue, the Jewish friends issue. So you said you was going back and forth a little bit, and so what brought you out of that and back to following Islam properly?
Right. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention about one thing. Okay, this one, it was actually a pleasant experience. It was a pleasant moment, actually. I really liked. Okay, so I was talking about the Christians, but before I go into answering that question, right, Brother Kenny, so I forgot to mention about this one other teacher I had. Also, my history teacher. He was a Jew, so when he was asking me, "Have you completed your 30 days of fasting right now?" So I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I never told you who I was. How did you know? I never told you my religion. I'm like, well, how did you know, sir? So that's my question. And then slowly, I kind of like, the only thing I knew about Judaism was back then was all about, okay, there were like certain prophetic stories that you would see, even in a lot of public schools throughout U.S. There are like a lot of prophetic stories. If you go into history, they're going to talk about Judaism. They're going to be talking about Christianity. These are the prophets, and the only thing I knew about were just the prophet stories and the dietary laws. That's the only thing I knew. I mean, it seemed very familiar to me. That's all I knew. But yeah, going back to your question, yeah, Brother Kenny. So to be honest, okay, so when I was kind of going back and forth, the reason why I went back to what got me back hooked onto Islam was basically, it was a tough moments that I was actually facing, throughout my life. Basically, I was actually going through depression, going through a lot of sorrow, grief. I mean, it was like the worst painful moments I've ever faced. Like the thing is, discrimination was enough when I was a kid and being bullied. But the thing is, this issue caused me to go back into Islam and, be grateful why I wasn't actually a Christian or a Jew. So basically what happened was the only prophet that I ever knew more than even the prophet, peace be upon him, Prophet ﷺ, the only prophet I tend to know more about was Prophet Moses. He was like the only prophet I knew more than any other prophets, even as a kid, even as a teenager, even as an adult. I mean, that's the only prophet he's the only prophet I knew more than Prophet ﷺ. But what got me back was, okay, when I was going through this this kind of, it's a long story, but to cut it short, I was facing, like tough times when I was going through depression. I used to sit under a tree near my apartment, and I used to reflect over there all the time, every day. And then all of a sudden I had one Christian buddy I never knew, actually. He was a friend of my roommate. He came and sat down next to me, and I was talking to him about, what I was facing, what I was going through, right? And he was advising me such and such, like, God knows better. He knows. And then, he was talking from his angle, his belief. And I was talking to him about what I learned from my belief, from the Islamic point. And then his question was like, wait, are you sure are you a Christian? That was his question to me. Are you a Christian? And I'm like, no, I mean, I'm not. I mean, the thing is, the other brothers, I even talked with other brothers about my issues, but then, this only one Christian fellow, he came and, was actually talking with me day and night. And he was like, here, you have a club of ours, you can come back to, you can come to our Christian club, ask a bunch of questions, we will help you, such and such. But the thing is, the only thing I learned, the only ayah that I remember, the only thing I remembered was when I was going through those tough times is there's like no other comfort you can find in this earth. Honestly, there's no other source of comfort you can find in this earth except other than the remembrance of who your true Lord is. Basically, I've gone through so much ever since I was, like before the age of 21. I've been through so much. I've gone through so many roads. I was in relationships. I used to, listen to music a lot. I used to even dance, like, break dance, like a while. But the thing is, I never took my deen very seriously. The thing is, once this issue came, I mean, the depression story I have is a long story. We could go over it another time. I mean, but the thing is, This
Personally,
was,
I don't think there's anything wrong with breakdancing as long as it's done with, I mean, there's no mixed, men and women don't mix themselves amongst each other. I think it's good exercise. I think, at least for the youngsters, right? They need an outlet to release their.
I come from the breakdance era, so that's I grew up breakdancing. Yeah, alhamdulillah.
I tried that. So, I mean, I used to I remember in my first year at UCSD, at the University of California, San Diego. I remember my first year when it was my orientation, and we were all in circles jumping around, and then everybody told me to go in the middle and start doing all those moves, and I'm like, okay, I think I ended up with a bad arm that day, but other than that, when I was depressed, I actually looked for comfort everywhere. I was searching, somewhere. Like, the thing is, I was facing this kind of depression. I was unable to eat. I was unable to sleep, and I actually started getting really unhealthy. I started eating unhealthy. I started sleeping unhealthily, and I was, harming myself in every way. I couldn't actually think of what else to do. I was, going crazy. I was going nuts. The thing is, the only thing I knew more than, the only thing that was actually telling me to go back, was, okay, do dhikr. Remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Remember, count on the blessings, remember in the heart. There's a specific verse.
The Quran says, in the remembrance of Allah, hearts find peace.
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah. And
hold on a moment. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but someone is asking. He's been asking the question a few times. Most epic. I'm not sure what that is. Black star. So he's saying that why is Prophet Ibrahim's name in Surah 2, Surah Al-Baqarah, I guess, Abraham, in parentheses Jewish, in the Quran, and all 113 other surahs Ibrahim. Don't ignore the people in chat. Well, I'm not sure what you're referring to. Even in chapter 2 of the Quran, the name of Ibrahim is Ibrahim. So, for example, if we look at verse 125 of the Quran, chapter number 2, right? وَإِذْ جَعَلْنَا الْبَيْتَ مَثَابَةً لِلنَّاسِ وَأَمْنًا وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى إلى آخر الآية. So the word there is Ibrahim. The name there is Ibrahim. I'm not sure what you mean.
Yeah, I seen that question and I just moved right past it because it's so nonsensical. There was no time.
Yeah, it's nonsensical.
All right.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Brother Ibn Anwar, for addressing that.
Yeah.
And so, so Frank, in regards to the depression issue, I actually want to do a show regarding depression. So I'm not sure if you want to talk about that at some point. We'll talk about that privately, but because depression is so serious, and a lot of people experience it on different levels, and it's something it's very, very serious. And the thing is, you realize in the midst of it that it was only Allah that was going to bring you out of it, and that's the beauty of going back to the prayer 5 times a day, because especially when you're going through depression, you feel it. And it's like a something that you can't escape. But when you go to the prayer, you feel relieved, even for a short period of time. But the beauty of it is you keep going back to the prayer throughout the day. You're going back to the prayer. You're still remembering Allah. You're still calling out to Allah, asking Allah to give you peace and to help you cope with whatever the issue that you're going through is. And that's the beauty of Islam. The way the prayer is structured. And the importance of doing just what Brother Ibn Anwar just mentioned, remembering Allah often. Allah says, remember me, who will remember you. Call on me, and I will respond to your call. For surely the divine remembrance of Allah is the highest of virtues.
Right. Yeah, I remember when I was doing dhikr all the time, when I was remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I remember crying in my prayers every single day, and then the thing is, what made me not go to Christianity, what made me not go to Judaism, I mean, okay, I remember I was familiar with those two religions. I mean, the thing is, the only thing was, what made me go back to Islam was, none of those religions actually ever has the concept of, remembering God, the thing is, Islam, subhanAllah, when you're doing dhikr, your heart starts to soften. You start to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
And the thing about Christianity and Judaism is that I don't have a lot of experience with the Judaism issues, but in regards to Christianity in particular, so I try to express this to Christians as much as possible in regards to us going to prayer as Muslims so often during the day, instead of letting everything pile up on you, letting sin pile up on you if you're committing sin, or the pressures of the world, or worries and fears and all those things, and waiting for Sunday morning to come, and then you think Jesus touched you, the jumped inside of you, and now you had this emotional outburst or emotional interaction or whatever. Islam,
Right.
we do this numerous times a day. So like you mentioned, you were going to the prayer and you were crying repeatedly through the day, and
Yeah.
the fact that you were being conditioned to keep returning to Allah, that situation that you were going through. Matter of fact, I mentioned a similar thing in my book, in my book, stating that the most difficult thing that I ever would imagine that I would go through, my worst nightmare come true by far, was actually my greatest blessing in disguise. And so I went through some of that same type of depression where I was like, I had no one but Allah, and I did not know what I was going to do. I lost everything. I lost my family. I lost everything. I did not know what I was going to do. But what did I do? I kept going to the prayer, cry many tears, keep returning to Allah, keep seeking. Yeah, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I was, so the way how you put it, brother Kenny, the thing I was thinking of exactly the same thing. The thing is, I lost I lost a lot, and I have no idea what's gonna happen next. I don't even know. I was like, oh Allah, I was like thinking to myself, what am I gonna do? I mean, I couldn't actually think. I'm like going nuts. And the thing about this is, okay, so I started going back to Juma. So I was going back to the Friday for prayer congregation, and then actually that was the time when depression struck. That was the first time I actually went to the masjid and prayed. I mean, there were like several incidents before, but the first time I actually sincerely got up to go to the masjid and start praying the Fajr prayer in congregation was during the time when I was depressed. So as soon as that event struck me, I got up from my bed around 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. and I did wudu, and then I put on my best clothes, and I head out to the masjid. The thing is, it was dangerous. I mean, the place where I live, the neighborhood I live, I mean, it's a dangerous neighborhood because there are like a lot of, mugging and a lot of, I, honestly, to my head, I'm like, I don't care what happens to me. Right now, I don't care even if somebody were to attack me or mug me or whatever. I don't even care right now. I'm just gonna walk straight to the masjid, and that is the only thing I had. And then the next day, I believe, was the Friday prayer congregation, and one of the brothers over there, I was complaining to him over and over again from what I was going through, and he was like, "If you want to be happy, then you follow what Allah said, and whatever Allah has actually prohibited to you to do, don't do that." So then I got to think. I'm like, that advice changed my life. Actually, that's the reason why I never went back towards when I was leaning back and forth with Christianity and Judaism. The thing is, honestly, Judaism, I didn't know too much about it. I mean, I did have several experiences with people who were Jews, and I also with Christians, I mean, I did grow up with them as well. The thing is, the only thing that prevented me from going towards Christianity and towards Judaism was basically that brother's advice. He said that, and I trusted him more than any other brothers in my neighborhood. Basically, he's a great neighbor, great human being. I mean, may Allah reward him for all the times he has ever helped me. So what he told me was, if you want to be happy, then you do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded you to do, and stay away from whatever He has prohibited for you to do. And that got me to think. Then that made clear sense. Actually, that made total clear sense, because anybody could claim, even a Christian could claim, I was depressed and then I saw Jesus and Jesus helped me, right? Or I went into Judaism, and I came out really well. But the thing is, what made it different was, okay, I want to do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and I had this kind of concept. I never actually could understand, okay, the full concept of God, like, who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What did He say in the Quran? What else did He say? What is the cure to this issue? The thing is, Islam is itself a cure, and people don't even understand that, because the thing is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to do what? To worship Him and none other else. For He is the only true one. For He is Almighty. He is all knowing. He is all seeing, and the more you read about His attributes, the more closer you get to Him. And so that's when I started to do more remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout my prayers, and started making du'as and started crying sincerely. The thing about what took me away, what pulled me away from Christianity side was basically, no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, if he's almighty, then he cannot die. He can't die. He cannot just resurrect. He cannot just be killed. And he's not even a human being. The thing is, why should Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be limited? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Sorry to interrupt again.
Yeah.
Most Epic Black Star is saying, wow, thanks for the effort, but read a paper Quran. Abdullah Yusuf Ali, for example, for instance, read it. Every scholar of the 21st century knows this. Abdullah Yusuf Ali is not the Quran. Abdullah Yusuf Ali is translation of the Quran. Most Epic Black Star. I read to you the verse, right? Apparently you don't know how to read the Quran, right? The name there is Ibrahim, not Abraham. You have Hamza al-Qata'i there at the beginning, bil kasrah, ba bil sukun, ra bil fatha, ha bil kasrah, mim bil fatha, i.e. Ibrahim, not Abraham. It would be Abraham if the Hamza al-Qata'i is bil fatha, but it is bil kasrah. The vowel there is E, not A. Okay? So please, don't waste our time. Thank you.
Alhamdulillah. And you know what? And that's why this is considered this TV where what? Truth is made clear from falsehood. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Truth is made clear from falsehood. All that lip bumping over there in the chat, you're doing yourself a great disservice. You're making a fool out of yourself. And I'm telling you that for trying to give you some advice. Because the truth stands out clear from falsehood, clear from error. Okay, so you can go over there and you can say all that you want to, but the fact of the matter is, you're talking about something that you have no knowledge of. So don't do that. Instead, why don't you present the question in a respectful manner and not try to make the claim that someone is wrong, when in fact you're actually the one that's wrong. Okay, so take some advice, use a little bit of wisdom. This is a platform full of Muslims right here, and you can simply ask, hey, could you explain this to me? You can do so in a respectful manner. Let me give you an example, as a matter of fact. So Mindy Domer just asked, she asked a very good question. Let me find it, so we'll post it. And she says, how do you know what Allah didn't want you to do? Okay, so brothers, you want to answer this? You want me to answer it? It's up to you.
What's the question? How do you know?
She's asking, how do you know what Allah didn't want you to do? And she's not asking this in an offensive way. She's asking a legitimate question, and there's obvious answers for it. So how do you know what Allah didn't want you to do?
You brothers want to take a shot at it before I do?
Yeah, well, just quite simply, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us guidance in the Quran. He's given us a roadmap to success, things that we're to live by. And if we do this, we're living in submission to Allah, who is our creator. Allah says in the Quran that he's closer to us than our own jugular vein. So this means that he knows us better than we know ourselves. Therefore, because he is our creator, he knows what's best for us and the best guidance to give us in order to stay away from certain things. Matter of fact, the logo for the show is consider this TV. The truth stands out clear from falsehood. Truth made clear from falsehood, which is what Allah says in the Quran. And so, basically, we follow what Allah has revealed. We stay away from things that He's says to avoid in the Quran, and we try to do things that would be pleasing to Him. Establish prayer, give to charity, be patient, don't oppress people. Try to help people whenever we can. Things that are good for not only the individual but society as a whole. So the things that we stay away from are the clear things that would cause problems for not only the individual but for society as a whole, such as adultery. Obviously it's going to affect the person you're committing a sin, but on top of that, it affects not only potentially your family, but also other people's families. Stay away from intoxicants. Allah says in the Quran that they have some benefit for you, but the harm is much worse, so stay away from those things. Gambling. Okay, so let's stay away from gambling. Sure, there's some benefit for you because you could actually win some money, but the harm is worse than is far worse than the good is. So stay away from it. Avoid those things. Brother Ibn Anwar, you want to mention this?
Oh no, you've answered it beautifully.
Yeah.
So anything that is revealed in the Quran and is revealed also in the Hadith literature through the words of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, these are the commands of the Lord our God, whose name is Allah.
Okay.
Yeah, beautifully explained.
Quite clearly, Danny Davis is asking what references there are for this. And matter of fact, let me give him some references real quick. So Allah says in the Quran, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. He says, okay, so Alhamdulillah, let me go to this. It says so basically in 15. Let me back up. I don't want to go that direction because I'll get off track with it. But Allah's basically telling people over and over again to obey Allah and to obey the messenger. And when you're obeying the messenger, you're obeying what's revealed in the hadith. So the sunnah of the prophet, his actions and his words. And so these are examples that we're supposed to live by. And of course, these are the authentic hadith. There's some hadith that have weak chains of narration. Some are just absolute fabrication. So we avoid those. But if it's in agreement with the Quran, then we follow those things. So Allah says in Surah An-Nisa, He says, they not reflect upon the Quran with care. If it had been revealed by anyone other than Allah, they would find it much contradiction. In Surah Al-Hijra, Allah says, we have without doubt sent down the message of the Quran, and we will guard it from corruption. Allah says in Surah Al-Waqi'ah, this is an honorable book, a protected book. None can grasp it except the sincere. It's a revelation from the Lord of the universe. So obviously, the Lord of the universe is the one who knows us better than we know ourselves. And so we're to follow his guidance and his examples. His guidance and follow the example of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And if we do that, then we're on a good shape. Matter of fact, Allah says in Surah Al-Azab, Allah says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. He says, this is certainly for you. There's certainly for you an excellent example to follow in the messenger of Allah, Muhammad. For anyone whose hope is in Allah and the last day and who remembers Allah often. Right? So alhamdulillah. So,
Quran says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ati'u Allah wa ati'u ar-rasula wa ulil amri minkum ila al-akhir al-ayah. In Surah An-Nisa, verse number 59. O you who have faith, obey Allah and obey the messenger,
right,
and those that have been given authority among you. And of course, in another verse of the Quran, in chapter number 3, verse number 31, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Say, if you should love Allah, then follow me, i.e. the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so Allah will love you and forgive your sins, and Allah is forgiving and merciful. So if you want Allah, God, to love you, then you have to follow the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And to follow the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is no other way except to follow his sunnah.
That's right. Allah says that even in Surah Al-Kahf, Allah says in the 24th surah of the Quran, ayah or verse 54, Allah says, say, O Muhammad, obey Allah and obey his messenger, but if they turn away, then upon him is only the duty to which he's been charged, and upon you is the duty to which you've been charged. And if you obey him, referring to Muhammad, peace be upon him, you'll be rightly guided. And there's not upon the messenger except the responsibility of clear notification. So this is a direct surah that's addressing, once again, matter of fact, the surahs that the brother Ibn Anwar just mentioned is referring to the sunnah itself, the actions and the words of Muhammad as our guide and our example. So we're going back to, we're still trying to address your question, Mindy Domir, in regards to how do we know what Allah is.
Musafir Black, I'm not sure if you were given a timeout, but even if you were, that's okay. Perhaps you were misbehaving. You're most welcome to join the platform, right?
That's right.
If you have a mic, I'm sure you do. We're not living in the 19th century here, right? Every device, I'm sure, is equipped with a functioning microphone, and I'm sure you are able to connect it. If you can, you're most welcome to join us, and we will address you. Whatever that you have in mind.
The link for the panel right now. So I'm going to join the panel, and you will have the link for the panel. It's best to use the Chrome browser because it works best with the Chrome browser. So there is the link for anyone who would like to join the panel. So before we get into other conversations, brother Frank Anderson, so tell us, what would be your advice for Muslims and non-Muslims alike in regards to, what is Islam doing for you on a day in, day out basis, and what keeps you on the deen, what keeps you on the straight path?
Yes, brother. So for my advice to both, first of all, to those Muslims out there, and so those Muslims who actually went from becoming okay, they were all Muslim and then they became an ex-Muslim or whatever. Okay, so my advice to all those brothers and sisters would be, okay, Islam is not just following blindly. I mean, you have to understand what you are doing. The thing is about, okay, I learned from a brother, his brother Daniel. His full name is Daniel Hakikaju. Okay, so he's a great speaker. So what I've learned from that brother is the greatest evidence for why Islam is the truth is Islam itself. Like, and I've seen many videos from brother Hamza from Speaker's Corner. So he was talking about why England needs Islam, why the world needs Islam. So Islam prohibits alcohol, like you mentioned, brother. You also mentioned it prohibits gambling. It prohibits illegal sexual intercourse. It prohibits fornication. It prohibits the use of drugs, and it prohibits the use of there's another one. Interest. There you go. Interest. The thing is, these 5 things are the poison, like the poison to the society. So the thing is about, like, you just think about, how could a man from the 6th century actually know all this? How in the world did he know all this, and is now trying to actually preach what Allah has commanded you to do and whatever He has prohibited you to do? Can you find any better explanation as to how he knew such things which are coming later into existence, later into focus, like within the late 20th century, or in the 18th century, or in the 19th century even? There are like several researches, for example, with the coronavirus, we knew about quarantine back then. Like the Prophet ﷺ, he already talked about the aspect of quarantine back in the 6th century. I mean, no other parts of the world actually had this concept of quarantine until, later on during the years. And I would also advise those brothers and sisters, please, before going on media, before being seduced by media, ask yourself, okay, what are these people actually, showing you, and what is their aim, basically? The thing is, they're trying to seduce you according to some certain reason. You just don't fall for it. What you should do is question it. You have to question, and you have to you have to question, and also ask yourself, why should I believe such and such, and how should I go about whatever I'm listening to? Because the thing is, I remember media seduces you in many ways. The thing is, they're gonna do it all for the sake of money. For example, one of the things I remember with the weapons of mass destruction, which are to be found in Iraq, that was never even found. The thing is, with those things are never found. You have to understand, this is all just, you're just basically a puppet for the media industries, which media industries are also puppets by political means, basically. It's all politics.
Yeah.
So this is all politics based. They're actually would want to actually get something out of you. You just don't actually want to give it to them. Like, I'll give an easier example. Let's say you go to a movie theater. Someone comes out of the movie theater, tells you such and such movie was so bad, the actor is horrible, and such. But the thing is, you, on the other hand, decide to go and watch the movie. Let me see. I want to watch the movie myself. I want to see how I feel about it, what you get from your experience. And then you, on the other hand, come out, and then you, on the other hand, actually have like another opinion. No, what you said was wrong. Actually, that doesn't even make sense. I watched the movie myself. It was awesome. I'm not gonna take your word for it. I myself have gone and done something So instead of actually whatever the media is showing you, whatever media is telling you about Islam, about the holy war, beheading people, shooting people, killing, and all this. The thing is, do some research. For example, when I was in my high school, when I was talking about the 9/11 with my teacher, he said, "But do you know how many Muslims actually died within that incident? They're not only Christians. They were not Americans only in those buildings. They were also immigrants. There were also people from Muslim countries who were in that building, right? How many Muslims have died in that incident? Ask yourself that. So why are you actually focusing on what the media is saying about, the plane crashed into the building, you have this terrorist organization, such and such. I mean, first of all, ask yourself, you have like a lot of Muslims also in that building too. How many people have died there? I mean, why don't you give justice for them? And going on from there, regarding the war on terror, the thing is, what always angered me, what always annoyed me was, when they would portray Muslims, with black masks and with swords in their hands, with guns and, with blood all over them. The thing is, I want to ask them, how is that any different from how, U.S. soldiers are? I mean, they have guns, they have bombs, they have all those weapons, and they're being deployed onto this Muslim lands, right? I mean, why? Like, how is that different from others? How is that different? I mean, you cannot just be that biased. You cannot just actually go on to depicting Muslims as bloodthirsty human beings and not do any research and be that ignorant to actually make such claims. I mean, I was there. I know all this. I mean, I know how it actually felt. Like, I myself, when I was depressed, I actually done a lot of research. The thing is, I wanted to get closer to Allah. All I cared about was happiness. Basically, I wanted to get rid of my depression. I just wanted to get out of this state. So I kept on doing research after research after research.
Brother,
after
that's
research.
That's exactly what I did. When I was going through all of it, I made a promise to Allah because going to the prayer was the only way I had peace. I literally had so much hurt inside that going to the prayer is the only time that I had peace. And also, other than seeking knowledge and being constant and continuously seeking knowledge and trying to strive to apply that knowledge. And that's what did it. And
Right.
that's, brothers, listen, that's why we're right here right now. I mean, obviously you're all taking your own path, but that's why I'm doing what I do right now, day in, day out, because that event that I went through in my life was so traumatic and so devastating. I'm saying this for the benefit of people who maybe if they're atheists or they don't believe in a creator, or maybe if they're backsliding a bit or they're not on the path of Islam the way they should be. The thing is, something at some point in your life, as a mercy from Allah, something very, very difficult is going to happen. And be assured of it. And that's a mercy from Allah that these difficult things arise. Allah says that He tests those whom He loves the most. He tests those whom He loves the most. And why is He doing this? He's trying to save us. And it's better that we endure the hardship in this life than face it all on the day of judgment. So we face it in this life. And what does it cause us to do? It calls us to be humbled to the point that, you hit your knees and you're broken and you feel like you have no one to rely upon. No doctors can do it. No brothers and sisters, mom and dad can't do it sometimes. No friends can do it. Only your Creator is the one who gives you that peace. And that's a great mercy from Allah. And that striving, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because continuously engaging yourself in seeking knowledge, that's the first commandment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, right? Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaqa. Right? Iqra.
Right.
Read, recite, proclaim. Right? Seek knowledge. Seek knowledge. Part of our deen.
And,
go ahead, brother.
and Sheikh Hamza Yusuf reminds us that, as you have said, Allah tests those whom He loves.
That's right.
And it is when you do not face tests, that's when you need to worry.
That's when you, that's right.
That's when you need to worry.
I totally agree.
To answer again, this person, Most Epic Black Star, I'm not sure what his motives are, but he's asking, what is istabarak in the Quran? Well, the Quran says in Surah Al-Insan, verse number 21, عَالِيَهُمْ ثِيَابُ سُنْدُسٍ خُضُرٌ وَإِسْتَبْرَقٌ. So that's one occurrence of that particular term in Surah Al-Insan, verse number 21. excuse me, if you read in chapter number 18 of the Quran, right? وَيَلْبَسُونَ ثِيَابًا خُضَرًا مِنْ سُنْدُسٍ وَإِسْتَبْرَقٍ. If you read in chapter number 44 of the Quran, verse number 53, يَلْبَسُونَ مِنْ سُنْدُسٍ وَاسْتَبْرَقٍ مُتَقَابِلِينَ. That's another occurrence of the term. If you read in chapter 55 of the Quran, verse number 54, مُتَّكِئِينَ عَلَى قُرُشٍ بَطَائِنُهَا مِنْ إِسْتَبْرَقٍ وَجَنَى الْجَنَّتَيْنِ. That's another occurrence of the word istabraq. If you read in chapter number 76, verse number 21, in the verse that I just read to you, right? Also, the word is mentioned that عَالِيَهُمْ ثِيَابُ سُنْدُسٍ خُضْرٌ وَإِسْتَبْرَقٍ. What does istabraq mean? Basically a brocade. A brocade. That's it. So I'm not sure what your point is, most epic black star.
Oh, that's the name of the user or whoever that is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Mindy Domir asked the question about interest. I see people have been answering her in the chat, but maybe it'd be easier for us to explain interest and why we are to avoid interest. So just basically, maybe these brothers want to expound upon it as well. But so there's two different ways to look at it. So for one, in regards to usury or putting too much pressure on someone and charging them interest when they're already struggling with their financial situation. So let me start from an individual standpoint. So instead of purchasing something and utilizing interest that's going to actually make the payments go up, it's better that someone stays within their means. So avoiding interest is a way to avoid putting financial stress upon yourself, because it limits you to living within your means. So if you can't afford it, you shouldn't be engaging in that, because it's actually going to cost you more in the long run. Okay, so on the flip side of that, you also don't want to charge interest, because you're putting an unnecessary strain upon someone else. So you're actually charging them more with the interest than what they're actually purchasing would actually be worth. So maybe you brothers want to put it into better terms, but it's very, very serious issue.
Sure. Oh yeah, brother Ibn Umar, you want to go ahead before I continue, or
Brother Ziad?
No, you
brother
can
Ziad?
Inshallah.
Well, no, I'm fine. Perfectly fine.
Oh, okay.
I just
So yeah,
wanna- I
Yeah,
just
sorry,
wanted to mention
brother, go.
something very. No, it's okay. It's very quickly. Just wanted to mention something very quickly. Do you know that there's evidence today that there weren't even any planes in the Twin Tower attacks?
Yeah,
They were added later with CGI. Did you know that?
Yeah,
I've seen
subhanallah. Yeah,
They never.
yeah. I've seen the
And
pictures too.
and I find it very interesting that the Secret Service, the FBI, and the CIA went across the Pentagon and they confiscated all the security cameras. Now, why would they do that unless they were hiding something? Because there wasn't even a plane in the Pentagon too.
yeah.
That's the reason.
I know.
That's
Yeah.
all.
If you think about the things that we see in movies, where you see all kinds of different things in the movies, right? So are we to think that they can't manipulate the news broadcast to make planes appear to be flying into the buildings? Now, let's clarify. This is not a bunch of Muslims on this show just saying this just to make excuses for these horrific attacks that took place, if they took place. But we see also along those lines, we see a systematic destruction of each and every one of the floors. So they believe that it was a controlled demolition. And so, listen, we was talking about propaganda earlier in the show, and what happens in propaganda is, and is throughout history, especially through the use of propaganda, they have a target group. They isolate and target a certain group, and they begin the attacks against them. They use propaganda. They use the media in order to do it, and usually they have an intention behind it. And most often, guess what? Most often it is war, right? Most often it is war. So they create a target. They demonize a certain group of people, dehumanize them, make them the enemy, and then they begin the propaganda campaign. So I want to make it clear that we're not just Muslims on here trying to make excuses for what happened on 9/11. Obviously, some people died. There was destruction, but it could very well be that the very people, like we mentioned earlier, the very people that are making the claim that this other group did it is most likely responsible for it. Yeah. So we were talking about the Islam and Christianity being spread by the sword. Islam was not spread by the sword. These battles were all defensive, every single one of them. Now, sometimes they had to take the offensive in the defense, but some of them they took the initiative, and it was an offensive attack. But they were fighting an enemy that they were in the process of defending themselves from. So Allah says in the Quran, "Fight those who first fight you, and run them out of places where they first ran you out of." And so, if you see the enemy and they've got your stuff in this caravan, this has literally happened with the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the Sahaba. They see these people in this caravan and they've got all their stuff. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm going to get my stuff. Okay, so in that regard, then I take the offense to go, but we're fighting. It's still a defensive battle in the fact that they were fighting their oppressors. So, we're not going to make excuses. I see Brother Ziad looks like he wants to say something there.
Yes, something very quickly, just to continue that verse. The verse continues and says, and if they fight you, fight them. But if they stop, you should also stop, and do not exceed the limits.
That's right.
Exactly.
This is in Surah Al-Baqarah from verses 190 to 193.
That's right.
That's the proper context.
Very clear. وَقَاتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ الَّذِينَ يُقَاتِلُونَكُمْ وَلَا تَعْتَدُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُعْتَدِينَ.
That's right.
Very clear. That you fight those who fight you, not people in houses, women and children. No, those who are fighting you, you fight them.
That's
but
right.
There is that clause, very important. وَلَا تَعْتَدُوا. Do not commit excesses. Do not transgress the limits. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُعْتَدِينَ. For Allah does not love those who commit excesses. And of course, we have the Quranic verse, وَإِن جَنَحُوا لِلسَّلْمِ فَجْنَحْ لَهَا وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. That if they incline towards peace, then you should also incline towards peace. Only if they do it. If they should desire peace, then we should desire peace also. But if they desire, of course, the implication of this verse is if they desire other than peace, then we have no other choice but to reciprocate. If they desire to annihilate us, of course, we're not just going to turn the other cheek. Nobody's going to turn the other cheek. We're supposed to defend ourselves. We're supposed to defend our family. We're supposed to defend our children, women, etc.
That's right. So this most epic black star, or whatever.
Terrorism in Islam is absolutely prohibited. We're not allowed to kill women and children. That is absolutely wrong. But the point is, what Ziad has mentioned, there is simply no shred of evidence that Muslims were in fact responsible for 9/11. There is no shred of evidence.
Exactly. Did you
know?
know?
As a matter of fact, I talk about this in the book that those 19 supposed hijackers, the people blamed, were actually known to have been frequenting strip clubs and consuming alcohol the night before. Now, does this sound like people that are on a religious campaign or a religious crusade, knowing that they're going to die the next day? It doesn't make sense. None of it adds up. So this most epic black czar is asking for references in regards to the verses that we were just mentioning in Surah Baqarah.
I gave the references.
That's what I was going to say. You just
chapter 2 of Surah which is Surah Al-Baqarah, the biggest surah in the Quran Al-Kareem, verses 190 to 193. That's the context.
That's right. That's right.
I gave the reference, and the brother recited it beautifully, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. Another thing that I really like to add is, okay, Islam is not only peaceful; it's also a very, very just religion. I mean, one brother was telling me, okay, the thing is, if you're always peaceful, but the thing is, whenever something is going on that's wrong, but you don't stand up to the injustice, then even peace itself could be some form of unjust thing to do. So the thing is, we Muslims should not just remain silent and have the injustice being done to others, and we are not able to do anything for them. So the thing is, Islam is not only a peaceful religion, it's also one of the most just religion, the most just that you'll ever receive. And there's no other religion other than Islam that is way just. SubhanAllah.
Brother Kenny, are you there, inshallah?
Brother, you there?
Guess who's back?
Okay.
I figured you were AFK.
I had to step away for a second. Yeah, alhamdulillah, I'm back.
No,
So-
yeah, what I was actually going through saying, was when I started researching a lot more, and what I realized was, alhamdulillah, Islam is the most just religion on this planet, and there's no other religion that is as much just as Islam. The thing is about Islam is we tend to always, it doesn't matter who we are, we always would side with those who are on the just path, and we will never, ever tolerate anything that is unjustly done to anyone. So the thing is about, I would say, again, the greatest evidence, the greatest truth for how Islam is the truth is Islam itself. The thing is, you follow those. I mean, those people who have accepted Islam, they have tested it. They have tested Islam all throughout their lives. You can just accept a faith, test that faith, know what you're doing, how you're doing, why you're doing, ask all these questions, and research, do a lot of research, and I would say be careful of media seductions, because the thing is, again, subhanAllah, the thing that Brother Ziad mentioned about 9/11, there's not an evidence of that being done by Muslims. Another one is finding weapons of mass destruction, which were in Iraq, and that was never found either. The thing is, and who started the war? The war on terror, it wasn't started by Muslims. They were never started by Muslims. Muslims never did anything on that.
No.
And it was a government who just came onto their soil, who came and invaded them.
Yeah, and along those lines, then you have people, the United States going into other countries and disrupting the whole country. And of course, the people who live there, if someone comes into your home and comes into your community and just starts destroying everything, are you not going to become angry at this? And so in a lot of these situations, they could actually manufacture the I don't want to say terrorists, because I hate to even say that, because let's be honest. If someone come to our country, right? Muslims, non-Muslims, doesn't matter. Atheists, it doesn't really matter. If another country came here, would we not want to fight them back? Obviously, we would.
Of course.
That's common sense, right? And are we then terrorists? Are we then terrorists because we're fighting for our homeland? No, we're defending the homeland. But guess what? But these people that the army, the United States is going and fighting against, now they're those Muslims over there, the enemy over there, us over here against them over there, and they're the bad guys, we're the good guys, God's on our side, and they're the enemy, they're the Muslims, right? But those people are just defending their homeland. My goodness.
It reminds me of even the American history. Before the American Revolution, you had this act called the Quartering Act, where the British would come in and just go into any colonists. They were like colonists living in America back then. They would go into their houses, and that really angered those Americans. Really, how would you like it if somebody from another country came into your house and started using whatever they see without your permission, without your approval? They just barge into your home and do whatever they want, and without a warrant. No rights on your behalf whatsoever. That's a very good example, Brother Kenny, that what you've given. If another country were to come and invade U.S., definitely we would actually stand up. I mean, we would take arms. I mean, of course, this is our homeland. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're Muslim or not. I mean, I myself, I was born here. I mean, I consider this a place to be my home as well. I mean, I was born in California, raised with my siblings, raised with my family. I mean, I would definitely, actually protect my home at all costs. It doesn't matter who it is. But the thing is, I don't want anybody stepping on whatever, is very, very, valuable to me. In this case, my home. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that. Would any of you brothers do that? I mean,
absolutely not. I mean, they better, I mean, absolutely not. I mean, it's completely absurd to think that we're just going to let someone just come in and just take over. I mean, my goodness. I mean, people, their instinct is either one of two things. The human being has an instinct of one of two things in that situation where someone is coming and attacking you, either attacking you personally, your family, your home. There's one of two responses: fight or flight. Fight or flight. Now, sometimes you're going to fight. Maybe you're facing great odds, but you still fight, or maybe you feel like you're going to fight. And sometimes you have to flee because there's no winning. There's no winning. So obviously, Allah says, even in the Quran, do not throw yourselves into destruction by your own hand. So, but that's the response. That's the natural response for a human being: fight or flight. Go ahead, Brother Ziad.
Yeah, I would like to respond to Mindy on the last question that she posed in the chat. She says, a somewhat off-topic question. For the American Muslims, what does Islam say about owning and keeping firearms? Well, with all due respect to all, this has already been answered in a way that if you are allowed to fight those who are fighting you, and they're trying to kill you and take over their land, etc., then of course you're allowed to have a firearm. But as long as you don't misuse it, and as long as you don't be the oppressor, you're allowed to. Of course, if you have permission from the government to carry, as long as you don't go around killing people, of course. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So you're allowed to. Basically, Islam allows you to defend yourself on equal terms, as long as if at the point when you reach, they have to incline for peace, that you don't oppress your attackers. And even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so merciful that He says to you, if they surrender, take them to a place of security and make sure that they listen to the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even in Surah At-Tawbah, which was at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after they lost the battle, the kuffar, they gave them 4 months of freedom to leave the area. And these were their oppressors. These were the people who had actually broken the treaty. The treaty that happened at Hudaybiyah, which the kuffar decided to break. And when they broke the treaty, of course, this was the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that was the biggest mistake, because people started sympathizing with the Muslims and they started growing in number. And at some point they were like, that's it, we're gone, we're goners. However, when the Prophet ﷺ finally reached Mecca with his 10,000 soldiers, what did he say? This is the perfect example, and I'm closing with this. He said, you shall not harm not even one person, not even one stone, not even one home, nothing. No one will be harmed. This is the mercy that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the mercy of Islam.
That's right.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Great answer, brother.
Great answer.
Alhamdulillah. Brother Ibn Anwar, was you going to say something about that as well?
Yeah, I was just going to say that according to the Islamic Sharia, the Muslim living in whichever land is subject to the laws of the land.
That's
so
right.
if the laws of the land is such that there is provision for citizens to own firearms, then a Muslim is allowed to have firearms. And in owning such weapons, the Muslim, of course, has to obey the rules that follow, including also whatever rules that Islam imposes on the believer. Namely, as Brother Ziyad has mentioned, he should not misuse that firearm to do bad things. Everything is laid out in the Quran and the Sunnah with regards to that. No harming of civilians, no harming of non-combatants, not to use it to harm anyone. Yeah,
that's right. I personally don't use firearms because I feel like they're a bit uncivilized. I prefer Jedi's lightsaber personally, but that's just me.
Something I want to mention very fast. This happened live on national television. It happened on an American show. They were having something similar to what we're having now, and there were these people on the panel, but some of them were close to each other. And there was this lady. She was attacking one of her hijabi sisters, and she was telling her, "You have no right, and your Sharia law has no place in American culture, etc., etc." So the sister replied to her, and she said to her, "Yes, but one of the rules of Sharia says that we should obey the laws of the land that we're actually visiting." And the other lady was like, her jaw dropped. That was hilarious.
Alhamdulillah. Brother Frank Anderson, so tell us something that on a day in, day out basis, what keeps you close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What is it in particular? I already know the answer, but go ahead, brother.
Yeah, so I was wondering, I was talking about going over the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also, yes, keeping yourself active and, do your best to do your prayers on time, and also constantly reflect upon yourself, constantly, contemplate, reflect upon. And one of the other things that got me closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on a daily basis was basically going over whatever these Islamophobes were actually, doing, like insulting. The thing is, that actually motivated me. Whatever the Islamophobes kept on, going over, ranting over all their tantrums, I would actually do my best, to use whatever time I have to research and clear out all the falsehood, basically. Instead, that actually gave, I'll be like, thank you, Islamophobes, for actually having me get even closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of your tantrums, your lies, your hate for Islam. I have done even more research. I learn everything every single day. I'm like constantly learning and researching every day. And I would ask questions to those people, to the people of knowledge, to the scholars, and on, okay, what is this hadith referring to? What is this hadith referring to? And the Islamophobe would talk about this, talk about that, vice versa. I would actually do my research and remove whatever is false, and see the truth crystal clear right there. And that actually helped me get even closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That actually raised my iman even more. Basically just going on and refuting all these Islamophobes, which I do daily. With these Christians, with atheists and Jews, and the thing is, that's, and I learned from, and I really love watching Brother Ibn Anwar, going over a lot of points, Brother Mustafa Ahmed, YouTube, Brother Kenny. You guys, the thing is, I learn a lot from you brothers as well. Even Brother Ziyad, I watch your show and I learn from you brothers, and then I do other research as well. Brother Ibn Anwar, you have been doing a lot of this research, ever since I was a kid.
Speaking of Brother Ibn Anwar, Brother Mukit Khan, assalamu alaikum, brother. I seen that the halal KFC that Brother Ibn Anwar posted as well. I gotta address Brother Darth real quick. Also, Brother Darth says, Kenny, but lightsabers don't have long battery life though. Brother Darth, let me clarify something. So I'm a true Jedi and I use a kyber crystal. We don't use batteries. True Jedis use kyber crystals. Truth is made clear from falsehood.
I love that.
This whole Jedi thing, this is something that I talk about literally every single day. Do I? As a matter of fact, Mika just posted this right here. Kenny Bomer is a Jedi. Well, she hears this every single day that I'm a Jedi. Yeah, back there every day I talk about I'm a Jedi, and hey, I do have a lightsaber, a good one.
It was a DAO organization I was in when I was in San Diego. The brothers over there, one of the brother, who taught me, he was the one who taught me how to give dawah to, some people. So what he used to say was, remember, Jedi is to the Force, while a Muslim is to taqwa.
That's right. Well, there's some. I know this is kind of funny, but there's so many parallels, to be quite honest, between the Muslim and Jedis. There's a lot of parallels.
Mashallah, I'm not the only person on this earth that thinks that. Mashallah, I think of that too.
I don't know if you see what this is right here. I don't know if you see what this is right here. Alhamdulillah. So, oh my goodness gracious. Alhamdulillah. Me and Mika having a blast over here about that. This is something that she hears every day about the Jedi stuff. So,
really?
Every single day. I'm a huge Star Wars fan.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But no, really, the parallels, I know that's kind of crazy, but the parallels between the Jedis and the Muslims are very, the morality of the Jedis in comparison to the Muslims. If you want, let's quite simply, I mean, this is actually a good thing to talk about just briefly for anyone who's a Star Wars fan. If you follow and watch how the Jedis act, that's the principles of Islam. And I wouldn't be surprised if they actually got some of those the ways of the Jedi from Islam, because they're so similar. They're so similar. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that, but we talk about that every day in this house. So alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. So yeah, so brother, let me make an announcement again, just real quick, because this will be tomorrow. Inshallah, this will be tomorrow. I will be engaging in this debate with this gentleman who calls himself a Muslim. I disagree, but he will be debating the topic: who is the final prophet, Muhammad or John, and who says so. This my opponent is Isa ibn Yahya, which means in English, Jesus, the son of John, who he believes his father is not only the final prophet of Allah, but also the Messiah, and also reincarnate of John the Baptist, the prophet Yahya, all rolled into one. So I know that sounds peculiar and a bit odd, but we will be debating this, and I encourage you to listen to this debate, because I'm going to touch on some things that's going to he's in trouble, to say the least, inshallah. So yeah, so we're going to be having that debate tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that will be midnight in the UK. And I think it's going to be about 3 a.m. for our moderator, Brother Ziad. I think that'll be about 3 a.m. in the morning for you. Brother Ziad is going to be moderating the debate. Is that correct, brother?
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Yeah, so yeah, it's going to be a very interesting debate. I ask you to share the links for that debate. As a matter of fact, you probably see them through the day tomorrow. They're already posted in Facebook and also on the YouTube channels. So please share those and get the word out, inshallah, if you could. And another quick announcement. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah. Danny David says that Christian Pringles has a degree in Islamic studies. Really? From which university? Really? Which university? I'd like to call them up.
I know. From the Batih University, for those who know Arabic.
And so Mindy Bomer says, I've seen his videos. I wouldn't ask him questions. I've seen his videos. I wouldn't be able to trust his answers. Danny Davis follows that with, he already embarrassed Kenny. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. He's done nothing to me that he hasn't done to every other Muslim that he's dealt with that comes on and has an actual answer for him. Will automatically go on mute, and all the gangs and all the shenanigans start. Matter of fact, he's kicked me off the panel numerous times, claiming that I removed myself, which I didn't. So alhamdulillah. So we know Danny Davis is a follower of Christian Prince. That's his hero. So it's not a surprise that Danny Davis will make these kind of comments. Matter of fact, so it's nothing new. But yeah, Go ahead, brother.
Someone would like to say hello to Mindy. Hi.
Well, Danny Davis.
I
I'm
made-
actually from Islamic University.
I made a joke earlier on to Brother Kenny. He can mention it about my cats.
That's right. He said that he thinks his cats might be involved in some Christian and Jewish missionary work. He won't get off of his prayer rug so he can pray. That man loves his cats.
I wanted to pray, and I found them on my prayer rug. They wouldn't move. So I'm like, you Christian missionaries in disguise. It's good to joke every now and then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good for the soul. Now, they're
So,
adorable.
please tune into the debate. Brother Ziad will be moderating the debates, and there's going to be a question and answer portion for the audience as well. So please tune into that, inshallah. So, Brother Frank Anderson, I truly appreciate you coming on today to tell us your revert story. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your efforts and intentions, and may you receive sadaqah for anyone who's influenced in any positive way whatsoever. Obviously, all good comes from Allah. Any mistakes that we make along the way are our mistakes alone. But thank you, brother, because it's a very personal issues. And I would like to talk to you more about the depression issue, because that's something I want to do a special show, maybe even for a week or so, where we focus on depression in particular, because it affects so many people in some just devastating ways sometimes. Causing people to resort to alcoholism and drug use, and all kind of different things, trying to find ways to cope. Sometimes suicide, because they're just so overwhelmed. Matter of fact, the number of celebrities that have committed suicide because of depression just outstanding. It's just, and those are we hear about those because they're celebrities, but depression is a very, very serious issue, and
brother. Yeah, I'll definitely be there. You can just set the time and the event. I'll be there. Yeah, definitely. I want to talk more about depression as well with you, because when I was depressed, I was actually like some of the people who are near me, like when I was on campus, my roommates, they were asking like, wow, you didn't even resort to alcoholism, because the thing is that's like the number one thing that people actually go towards whenever they're very, very depressed. And I also had thoughts on suicide as well. That kind of actually, like, I don't want to live anymore. It's hurting me. It's paining. It's just too much. I couldn't bear it, And when I think of it now, when I go back and I think of those, whatever has occurred to me, it just makes me more grateful. And I'm like, I kind of miss those moments now, because I was really close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during those moments. To be honest, I really miss those events.
You did the exact same thing that I did, brother, and by engaging yourself in the remembrance of Allah, by reading, seeking knowledge, listening to debates, listening to lectures, khutbahs, reading the Quran, all these things are a means to refocus and actually recondition yourself to where you realize that nothing that you're facing is actually new. There's people are facing these types of things all the time. Allah says in the Quran, surely we'll test you with fear and hunger and the loss of lives and property and the fruits of your labor, but we give glad tidings to those who do what? Who patiently persevere, and who say, when affected with calamity, from Allah we come, and to Allah is our return. Wa inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. Okay, so that remembrance and realizing, okay, so let me think about this. Let me put everything in the proper perspective. I'm going through something right now, and someone else went through a similar thing yesterday. But sometimes in the depression, it causes you to think that no one can understand how I feel. I tell people, but they don't really understand how I feel. But Allah does. So maybe another human being, they can relate. But and that's so in dealing with depression, there's certain things that one should do. So another thing that I engaged in the midst of it is I started doing charity work. Trying to help people that were in a worse situation than I was, and maybe in a different way. Mine was more emotional, but there's other people that are going through more physical things, or maybe financial issues or whatever. So I started reaching out to those people, which is following what Allah says. One of the 5 pillars of Islam is zakat. Sadaqah, zakat, and trying to help people that are less fortunate or people that are going through something worse or something similar.
Right. And,
So yeah.
And another beautiful thing about that, brother Kenny, and once you went through all that stage, right? Alhamdulillah. The thing is, now you are doing whatever you can, to propagate the beauty of Islam, to the mass. I mean, that's what I love about, whenever I think about, what I went through. I'm like, I wasn't, and now I'm like, doing whatever I can, like giving charity, and what I really, really am grateful for, going through that was now I am doing whatever I can to spread the message of Islam everywhere. Even debating with Islamophobes, even challenging them. I love triggering them every single day if I have to. Whatever, I'll just if you make us angry, I'm gonna make you angry.
Well,
whatever. I don't.
Well, we got to balance the scales on that, but I understand what you're getting at as far as I started doing the same thing, brother, and I started dealing with people on a daily basis as far as debating with them in the Facebook groups and all those things. At this point, I don't mess with the Facebook groups anymore. I'd rather come here and have an actual conversation. It's too much time for me to type all these long responses, and they're not even listening to them anyway. But that interaction, even if you're doing that, there's so many other things that a person could be doing. But in the process of doing that, that's jihad, because what are you doing? You're striving and you're trying to focus on something that's more beneficial than all the other things that a person could be doing in their life, right? So you're engaging in a constant and ongoing jihad and dealing with the Islamophobes online, and you're focusing on Allah in the process. And like you said before, you're seeking knowledge. The books, you gotta go to the books and find the answers to these issues. And so it's every bit of it is a form of worship. So you take that difficulty and you counter it with the fact that, well, now instead of focusing on alcohol, drugs, and various women and all these different things, instead I'm going to pick these books up. I'm going to go to these sources and I'm going to read. I'm going to fill my mind with knowledge. And who am I filling my mind with knowledge about? Allah, our Creator. So the blessings are just stacking up. The seeking of the knowledge is stacking up. It reconditions you. It helps you mentally, emotionally, and even physically. Because literally, I'm sure you understand what I'm saying when I'm going to say this. The depression affects you physically. It breaks you down even physically. I'm sure sometimes you didn't even want to get out of the bed, or you wanted to stay in the dark, right? And when your family was awake, you was asleep. And when you was asleep, they were awake. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. And also another thing is, I would actually be like, even when I was depressed in my most difficult times. Okay, the thing is, I would get yelled at. I mean, by my family members too. And the thing is, honestly, I'm like, I have already done so much. I'm going through so much right now. I just don't need anybody yelling at me. And I don't want anybody saying all these things to me. The thing is, I just want to be left alone. I just want to be left alone, and I don't care what is going on with me right now. The thing is, I just want to, I wanted myself to leave I just wanted to leave my city. Basically, I wanted to go. Like, I live in Los Angeles right now, so when I was going through this issue, what happened, alhamdulillah, the thing is, when I went back to San Diego, I was by myself, and I was surrounded with such great brothers. Alhamdulillah, that was a great blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I was surrounded with very knowledgeable brothers, wherever they went, they were always constantly going to prayers at the masjid. They were always going to constantly listen to lectures from the people of knowledge. They would even provide me with, lectures as well. And I actually was with them almost every single time. I was always that eager to finish whatever work I had, whatever studies I had. I would be so eager to finish whatever I had to do and just spend the rest of my day with them.
I apologize to interrupt again, but Danny Davis in text is saying, Tariq, why don't you ask your scholars to shut down CP, Rob Christian, David Wood, or the several other several others exposing Islam. Well, you're trying to imply that because they continue with their nonsense, that means Muslim scholars are scared of them, and that they have something that the Muslim scholars cannot address. Well, Danny Davis, following your logic, why hasn't Bart Ehrman been shut down? He continues to speak publicly, right? Audibly to everybody. He has a very large following. Why hasn't a single Christian scholar shut him down? Does that mean that Bart Ehrman has got something that Christians can't address? It must be, according to your logic, Danny Davis. So does that falsify Christianity? And that's just one example, Bart Ehrman. We have many Bart Ehrmans out there, right? Danny Davis. Also, why doesn't CP go to Al-Azhar University? He's from Egypt, isn't he? Do you know how Al-Azhar University works, Danny Davis? Many of their classes are held publicly in the masjid, so that the scholar, for example, Sheikh Ali Juma, he would sit on a chair and be surrounded by his students and by the public who will sit on the floor. They are more than welcome to pose questions to him during any of the sessions of the classes. If he has such great knowledge of Islam and he thinks that he can stump Muslim scholars, all he has to do is go to the masjid at Al-Azhar University, participate in one of the public classes. They are held publicly, right? They're not closed door meetings, and then pose his questions. Have the debate right there and then. Why doesn't he do that? You know why? Because he's scared.
Actually, Anwar, can I add something to that?
Yeah.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
First of all, people like Christian Pringles or Christian Princess or whatever you want to call him, or Christian Batik, first of all, he doesn't even know how to pronounce the Arabic properly. And ironically, he's a Syrian. He's a Syrian. That's ironic. That's point number one. Point number two, all these Islamophobes, these bigots and these haters, they make such blatant lies, which unfortunately their viewers have no way of telling. Like, for example, do you remember this guy called Kamel Selim from Lebanon? Do you know what this guy actually mentioned? He said that he studied, notice this, he studied at the Azhar University in Lebanon.
Oh my goodness.
And the problem is that his viewers are like, yeah, we believe you, but they don't even know that the Azhar University is actually in Cairo.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Oh, and by the way, if you want to have, and I'm saying this especially since we have one of his followers here, at least one of his followers, if you think that your scholar in Islamic studies, that he's an expert and that he's so right and righteous, etc., I want you to Google. I want everyone to do this actually, not just his followers. I want you to Google Christian Prince admits. Now, forgive me for what I'm going to say, but this is the title of the video. Christian Prince admits that his Bible is porno.
His Bible is porno?
He admitted it, and this good brother, mashallah, he went to his Pal Talk room back then, and he made him admit that his Bible is porn, and he was recording him. Christian Prince admitted it, and I can send the link in the chat. Just give me a few minutes. I'll do it now.
And for everyone who thinks that no one knows what Christian Prince looks like, on the contrary,
We know what he looks like.
Yeah, let me. For those who don't, we're gonna show who he is. Oh, well, lo and behold, there he is. There he is. That's Christian Prince right there. So yeah,
Christian Pringles.
Let's get a good look at it. That's your hero right there. That's Christian.
Or in Arabic, Christian Batik. Batik.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. So yeah,
let me get this video for you. It's amazing.
Brother Ziad,
yes.
Go to the private chat because it's easier for me to communicate with you there. But I want to ask you something about the character that you mentioned a moment ago.
Okay, sure. Just give me a sec. Let me just find this video and I'll send it via YouTube so everyone will see it.
Okay.
Downfall Christian Prince, whatever.
Well, let me just ask you this: do you want to bring him on the channel or on the show?
That's not what I said, but
I thought that's what I was wondering. That's what I was going to ask you if that's what you wanted to do.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna.
Mindy Domir is asking if Christian Prince is actually a Christian.
No, he's not. No, he's not. No, he's not.
Not a very good one. If I've come across some very decent, very kind Christian people in my life, and
yep.
No, he doesn't have the characteristics that they do. I assure you. Yeah.
Well, Paul says that blatant deceivers will go to hell. So if that disqualifies a person from being a Christian, then Christian Prince is automatically disqualified by his incessant deceptions.
Yeah. Then David says we're ruining his life. That we're ruining Christian Prince's life. I guess by showing the photo of him. No, because matter of fact, day before yesterday we had a show where it was a big Islamophobe alert. Maybe Danny Davis didn't tune into that show, but the big alert was, and I carried people along for a while to the end of the show. But the big alert was,
I found it
for the Islamophobes themselves. That the alert was, guess what? No Muslims are out to get you. No one's plotting and planning your demise. So you don't have to be in fear. We're not conspiring to come and get you and to attack you. So no one's putting Christian Prince's life in danger. Matter of fact, to be on the contrary, someone is putting his life in danger. He's actually putting his own life in danger in regards to the final outcome of his life, because he's continuously attacking Islam and attacking people who bow and pray 5 times a day to our Creator, and he's aware of that. And I just like even you yourself, Mr. Davis. We're Muslims. We're on the show. We're talking about our Creator. As a matter of fact, Mika just bought me one of the Schofield Bibles. It's over there underneath some other books right now. But it just showed up today, Schofield Bible. And in the Schofield Bible from 1917, what does it have in there? It says the word Allah in there.
Allah.
Yeah. So, we're constantly attacking, and what do you think you're storing up for yourself?
I can't send the link.
You can't send it?
I'll send it to you via Facebook, and you can send it. I can't send it in the chat. It says, sorry, remove any web addresses and try again.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, so send it in the
I'll send it via Facebook right now.
Send it to the private chat.
And I send it to you via Facebook right now, and I'll send it in the private chat as well.
Okay, all right.
The video title is Christian Prince. This was recorded like 8 years ago, I think. Christian Prince calls his Bible porno, lol, and the link. Now you guys have to watch it. It's hilarious. This was 8 years ago by one of our good brothers. He has a YouTube channel, and it was re-uploaded by another good brother. No, actually, sorry. It was 9 years ago. Sorry, let me give you the original link. That was not the original link. Let me give you the original link.
Okay.
I gave you the re-upload, but that's okay. I mean, it's the same video. Anyway,
just post it in the chat in the show platform.
Put it in the chat. Okay, here is the original video. I just sent it. That's the original. But the title is the same. Christian Prince calls his Holy Bible porno. Something like that.
And I'm going to post it in the chat for everyone to look at.
Hilarious.
Then you Abduls are modernized Muslims. Well, guess what? We live in modern times, so I mean, it's.
This other guy, this other good brother of ours, I can't remember. I don't know his real name, but his nickname is Radd al-Shuhabat. Anyone know him?
Uncle. No.
Very good brother of ours.
Uncle Angel. Uncle, brother Angel.
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that. Something like that. He made a special video about Christian. Rad al-Shubhat. I really love that. I really love that guy. He's amazing. He made this. He made this video where he exposes some of the biggest lies of Christian Prince. Like, for example, Christian Prince or Christian Pringles or Princess, whatever you will call him, or Batikh, he made a claim that allegedly Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he killed many people in a battle in which the battle took place at least 3 years after he died.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And he also mentioned that look at the stupidity of Christian Pringles. He mentioned that at the end of Ramadan, notice the stupidity, at the end of Ramadan, why do they do the sacrifice? The sacrifice. He doesn't even know how to say the word sacrifice. The sacrifice at the end of Ramadan? Are you kidding?
Yeah.
He doesn't know the difference between Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha.
Yeah, the brother Mukit Khan posted the brother's name. I knew his brother Ankiel. I always get the last name wrong.
Ankiel. Yeah, he's amazing. He's so cool. He's so cool. I really like that brother.
Yeah, I like him too.
MashaAllah.
As a matter of fact, he's had some interactions with David Wood as well.
Mm-hmm.
David Wood looked quite nervous in that discussion. The one video in particular that I seen with him. But okay, so
did you watch the debate between David Wood and brother? What's his name? The guy with in the UK. What's his name? Muhammad Hijab. He totally annihilated him. Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and close the show out. I have some things that I need to do for the debate tomorrow. But yes, once again, let me, matter of fact, share it one more time before we get it out of here. But once again, the debate tomorrow is at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, 5 p.m. on the West Coast, the Pacific Standard Time. So 5 p.m. on the Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that will be 11 p.m. No, midnight in the UK, and it will be like 3 a.m. in the morning for our moderator, Brother Ziad. So before we go, I do want to say thank you once again to Brother Frank Anderson for coming on and telling us his revert story. He was born into a Muslim family, but he kind of was not really following Islam the way he should have been. So indeed, he did revert back to the straight path, in Sirat al-Mustaqim of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's still a revert story, and I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses you, brother, for taking time out to come on and tell your story. Brother Ziad's done the same thing. And thank you, Brother Ibn Anwar, for joining the show, and also Brother Marshall Gregory for promoting the show and joining the show earlier, the platform. Also Brother Mukit Khan and Brother MI5 Dunya for moderating the chat. Brother Tariq, Mindy Domir, I am two Momin, I am a Motumin. Okay. So everyone who's been watching, alhamdulillah, thank you for joining the show, Brother Tariq. And I do bear witness there's no God other than Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the final servant and the seal of all prophets. And I'm going to prove that. The Muslims already believe this, but I'm going to prove this to my opponent tomorrow, inshallah. So tune in to that debate, inshallah. I can certainly use the support, and also I'm using it as a form of sadaqat jariyah for my oldest son who passed away almost a year ago to the day due to an auto accident. And I'm dedicating that the debate to my son, my oldest son, inshallah. So I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts my efforts and intentions, and he accepts the sadaqah. So yeah, please tune in once again, and thank everyone for watching. We do have Brother Dr. Shabir Ali is going to be coming on next week. They had to open up the masjids and all that for the Jummah prayers this week. So they had a lot of meetings that he had to attend, and anyway, so we're going to have Brother Shabir Ali on next week, inshallah. So if you'd like to help support the show, please click on the Patreon link or the GoFundMe link, or actually there's not a GoFundMe link right now, but the Patreon link or the PayPal link, inshallah, to help the platform for the dawah. Or if you want to donate to have a water well built for Sadaqah, please specify that. Matter of fact, if you want to do that, whichever one you want to give to, if you make a donation, please let me know which one you want it to go to. That way I can make sure the money goes to the appropriate fund, either the Dawa fund or the Waterwell fund. And so with that being said, I'd like to say assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace be upon everyone who's been watching. And thank you, brothers, once again. Special thanks to Brother Frank Anderson once again for telling his Revert story. And if anyone listening, if you know any other Reverts out there, please tell them about the show. We'd like to hear their story. Or if you're a Revert and you'd like to come on and tell your story, inshallah, we'd love to have you on. And this is Sadaqah for anyone who benefits from your story, inshallah. So with that being said, assalamu alaikum, brothers, and thank you for participating.
Wa alaikum salam.
Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin.